Chapter 972. He left home just because of this? Qin Feiyong was surprised and asked, was Pei born when he left? Not long ago. The chief of the divine python tribe said. Qin Feiyong immediately shook his head, his eyes full of disappointment. He thought that Pei Changfeng was a great figure, but it turned out that he was just Oso. Because, to put it nicely, he was indifferent to fame and fortune. To put it bluntly, he was childish. Besides, Pei was already born at that time. It was irresponsible of him to leave just like that. In other words, he was selfish. After a long time, the chief of the divine python tribe looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Little brother, I hope you won't tell Pei about this for now." Yes, he loves and hates his father. If he suddenly knows about his father's death, I'm afraid he will have a mental breakdown. The high priest nodded and agreed. I understand. Qin Feiyong nodded and said, but Pei Changfeng is his father after all. He should know. The chief of the divine python tribe pondered for a while and said, I'll find a suitable opportunity to tell him. By the way, did my brother leave behind any other relics? Qin Feiyong was a little hesitant. Of course, there were relics. Sacred weapon ice blade, 6th grade alchemy fire, 6th grade alchemy furnace, and a large number of medicinal herbs. But he had already forgotten what medicinal herbs there were and how many there were. The 6th grade alchemy fire had long been devoured by the netherworld demonic flame. In other words, the only things he could return to the divine python tribe were the ice blade and the alchemy furnace. The alchemy furnace did not matter. Anyway, it was broken and useless. But frankly speaking, he could not bear to return the ice blade to the divine python tribe. Seeing Qin Feiyong hesitate, the chief of the divine python tribe smiled and said, Little brother, don't get me wrong. I'm not asking for these relics. After all, you got them with your own ability. We have no right to ask them back. I just want to see if I can find out the cause of his death from these relics. You can rest assured. I've already checked and found no clues about the cause of his death. Qin Feiyong said. The two of them looked at each other with a trace of disappointment in their eyes. Crack. Suddenly, the chief of the divine python tribe clenched his fists and said in a deep voice, No matter what, we must find out the cause of his death and avenge him. Yes, whoever dares to hurt the people of the divine python tribe will have to pay the price. The high priest nodded, his eyes filled with killing intent. However, Qin Feiyong shook his head noncommittally. After such a long time, it was unrealistic to find out who killed Pei Zhangfeng. After a while, the chief of the divine python tribe put away the token and cupped his hands. Little brother, thank you so much. If you have time in the future, remember to visit my divine python tribe. I will. Qin Feiyong nodded and smiled. Then we'll take our leave first. The chief of the divine python tribe said, Take care. I won't see you out. Qin Feiyong said. Then, the chief of the divine python tribe opened a portal and left with the high priest. Strange. When the teleportation gate dissipated, Qin Feiyong could not help but frown. One had to know. Pei Zhangfeng had a high status in the divine python tribe, and the chief of the divine python tribe was Pei Zhangfeng's younger brother. If it were him, he would definitely ask for the exact location of Pei Zhangfeng's burial and then immediately bring Pei Zhangfeng's body back and bury it in the tribe. However, the chief of the divine python tribe did not even ask. Was this the attitude of a younger brother? After a while, Qin Feiyong whispered, He must be too sad and hasn't reacted yet. This was the only explanation that made sense. He stood there and pondered for a while. Then, he entered the alchemy room and put away the alchemy furnace. Then, he walked out of the alchemy room and flew toward the Holy Land. Everywhere he passed, the disciples he met were extremely respectful. About half an hour passed. Finally, a huge object entered Qin Feiyong's sight. It was a stone tower, dark and towering, exuding an ancient aura. Opposite the ancient tower, there was a steep giant peak, like a giant sword, towering into the clouds. That was the place where the disciples of the Holy Land cultivated, the Holy Tower and the Holy Peak. Qin Feiyong flew straight to the Holy Tower. In front of the Holy Tower, there was a square of about 1,000 feet, paved with a layer of green stone slabs. At this moment, The square was full of people. Even the surrounding void was filled with people. They were all disciples of the Holy Peak and the Holy Tower, and each of them had extraordinary strength. Ancestor Mu. As soon as they saw Qin Feiyong arrive, their pupils constricted. There was fear. There was envy. And jealousy. Qin Feiyong stopped in the air and scanned the crowd below. After a while, he did not see Elder Wang and the others, so he looked at a disciple and asked, "Where is Elder Wang and the others?" "They have all left. They should be discussing this matter with the Chief Tower Master," the disciple said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a while, opened the portal, and directly descended in front of the Chief Tower Master's courtyard. Last time, he had been here with young Master Hao, so he knew the coordinates. As the disciple said, the senior figures of the Chief Tower were all here. The Chief Tower Master, Elder Wang, and Wang Yuer's parents were all sitting in the pavilion. The rest stood around the four of them. They did not speak. Their faces were gloomy. The atmosphere was extremely solemn. Young Master Hao and Wang Yu stood on the path between the flower beds, looking at those people from afar. Swish! Qin Feiyong flashed, landed beside the two, and asked, "How's the situation?" "We didn't catch that person. We didn't even see that person's shadow." But young Master Hao's face was also very ugly. "But what?" Qin Feiyong asked. Young Master Hao said, "Someone found Qin Feiyong's trace in the holy ground." "Bastard!" Qin Feiyong's eyes suddenly surged with anger. It was obvious. This must have been done by Mu Qing on purpose. As for why Mu Qing did this, it was nothing more than to shift the target. Now the people present probably already thought that it was him who had snatched the heavenly star flame. This Qin Feiyong is simply too lawless. We must find him and execute him in public. Sure enough, in the pavilion, a peak master of the warrior mountain said with a murderous aura, "We all want to find him, but the problem is that this person comes and goes without a trace. We can't do anything to him at all." Gongsun Bei said, "Bastard." The Chief Tower Master slammed his palm on the stone table and said angrily, "Our dignified Chief Tower, there are countless powerhouses, but we can't do anything to a kid like him. Aren't we a joke? Investigate immediately, even if we have to turn the forgotten continent upside down. We must find him for me." Gongsun Bei's eyes trembled, and he hurriedly went to make arrangements. After Gongsun Bei left, the Chief Pagoda Master looked at the 10 Peak Masters. The 10 Pagoda Masters said, "All of you, stay in your positions and guard against any potential dangers. If something like this happens again, I will hold you responsible." "Yes." The 10 Peak Masters and 10 Pagoda Masters respectfully responded and hurriedly left. At this point, in the pavilion, only the Chief Tower Master and the other 3 were left. The Chief Tower Master looked at Qin Feiyong and the other 2 and said, "The 3 of you, come here." The 3 looked at each other and quickly walked over. The Chief Tower Master said, "You all know the situation. Now tell me, do you have any good ideas?" Wang Yuer was silent. Young Master Hao was silent. Qin Feiyong was also silent. What a joke. He was Qin Feiyong. How could he help these people to come up with a plan to deal with him? The Chief Tower Master raised his eyebrows, looked at Qin Feiyong and said, "Ancestor Mu, you speak?" "Me." Qin Feiyong was stunned. Why did he mention his name? Wasn't he deliberately making things difficult for him? After a while, Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and said, "Forgive this disciple for speaking bluntly, but it is almost impossible to find Qin Feiyong." "What do you mean?" The Chief Tower Master and the other 3 looked at him. "It's very simple. Since he dared to enter the Chief Tower and steal the heavenly star flame, then he is not afraid of us finding him. But there is one thing that this disciple still can't figure out." Qin Feiyong said. "What?" the Chief Tower Master asked. As everyone knows, Qin Feiyong has someone protecting him, but who is this person protecting him? And our Chief Tower controls the entire forgotten continent. Who has the courage to go against us? Qin Feiyong said. The 4 fell silent. Qin Feiyong said again, "In fact, we don't need to specifically look for Qin Feiyong. We just need to find the person behind Qin Feiyong." "Makes sense." Wang Yimou nodded. In this way, the scope was reduced a lot. Because there are not many people in the forgotten continent, who have the ability to break into the chief tower and dare to go against the chief tower. The purple-clothed woman suddenly said, I think the only one who dares to go against our chief tower is the Mu family. Mu family. The chief tower master frowned. The purple-clothed man said, Then who is the mysterious madam behind Qin Feiyang? The purple-clothed woman said, Why don't we make a bold guess? Could this mysterious madam be from the Mu family? You mean, the Mu family is a thief pretending to be a thief? The purple-clothed man was surprised. I don't exclude this possibility. The purple-clothed woman said. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he said, Master, Elder Wang, Auntie, Uncle, there is actually a simpler way. Say it. The four looked at him, their eyes full of expectation. Qin Feiyang said, Before I say it, this disciple wants to ask, is there any secret hidden in the heavenly star flames? Obviously, this was asking the obvious. When the four heard this question, they all fell silent. There really is a secret? Young Master Hao and Wang Yu looked at each other, their eyes flashing with a touch of surprise. After a while, the chief tower master looked up at Qin Feiyang and the other two and nodded. There is indeed a secret, but this secret can't be told to you yet. Then how many people know this secret? Qin Feiyang asked. Not many. The chief tower master shook his head. Then it's simple. Let's start from this point. Anyone who knows this secret, go and investigate it. I think it must be one of them behind the scenes. Qin Feiyang said. Yes. Such a simple reason. Why didn't we think of it before? The four looked at each other. Qin Feiyang did this because he wanted to turn the tables on the Mu family and put some pressure on the Mu family. Moreover, he can't always be the scapegoat, right? Chapter 973. Inside the pavilion. The pagoda master and the other three were lost in thought. Qin Feiyang was also silent. After a while, the pagoda master looked up at the three and said, You should be thinking the same thing as me. The three nodded. The pagoda master said, Well, from now on, pay close attention to the Mu Jia's movements. Old man, since you all suspect that it's the Mu Jia, just send someone to ask. Why do you still want to spy on them? Young Master Hao frowned. I say, what are you thinking about all day long? Do we have any evidence now? No, we're just guessing. In this case, we can't directly question them. The pagoda master said angrily. There's one more thing, the Mu Jia doesn't know yet. We've already begun to suspect them, so we won't be particularly cautious. But if we run to question them now, they will be very careful in the future. In this way, no matter how we investigate, there won't be any results. Qin Feiyang added. Chief Pagoda Master looked at Qin Feiyang with admiration. Soon after, he looked at young Master Hao and said with a straight face, Do you see that? This is the gap between you and him. In the future, you should learn from him and use your brain more. Humph. Young Master Hao coldly snorted and glanced at Qin Feiyang. He looked quite dissatisfied. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He looked at the Pagoda Master and said, This disciple also wants to do something. Please help me. In fact, he wanted to take the opportunity to find out the location of the Mu Jia's nest. The Pagoda Master was stunned and smiled. I won't let you take risks, but I'm very pleased that you have this intention. Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly showed a trace of disappointment. The Pagoda Master thought for a moment and said, But there's one thing that I can give you to deal with. What is it? Qin Feiyang asked. The Pagoda Master said, Go to Qinghai. I'll tell you the details in a few days. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. The Pagoda Master smiled. Then you go to your work. I still have something to discuss with Old Wang. Disciple will take his leave. Qin Feiyang bowed and saluted. Then, he turned around and walked out. Young Master Hao chased after him in big strides and said angrily, You bastard, you're really in the limelight. Is there? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Keep pretending. Keep pretending. I'm afraid that in the old man's eyes, you're more important than me, his own son. Seeing Chief Pagoda Master's attitude towards Qin Feiyang, young Master Hao's jealousy exploded. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, All right, it's my fault. I shouldn't have stolen your limelight. Why are you apologizing? I'm not blaming you. I only blame myself for being useless. No matter what I do, I can't satisfy him. Young Master Hao sighed deeply and asked, "Where are you going now?" "Of course, I'm going back to the first tower to cultivate." Qin Feiyong smiled. "You really are a cultivation maniac." Young Master Hao rolled his eyes and said, "You don't need to go to the first pagoda now. The old man has already arranged a place for you to stay in the Holy Land. I will take you there." "It's arranged?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. He followed behind young Master Hao, walked out of the courtyard, and walked down a secluded path. But gradually, he frowned because Wang Yuer was still following behind them. "What do you want to do?" A moment later, Qin Feiyong finally couldn't help but stop and turn around to look at Wang Yuer angrily. "Me? What do you mean?" Wang Yuer was a little stunned. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "If you don't have any ulterior motives, why do you keep following me?" "Following you? What a joke." Wang Yuer sneered without hiding it, walked straight past Qin Feiyong, and then walked forward without looking back. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. Young Master Hao had been snickering at the side. After Wang Yuer left, he looked at Qin Feiyong and said with a low smile, "I forgot to tell you, Sister Yu also lives in this direction, and it's not far from where you live." Qin Feiyong's face twitched. It turned out that he had misunderstood Wang Yuer. That was awkward. Young Master Hao's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule, and he asked, "But speaking of which, how should I address you now?" "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. "Originally, I called you brother, but now, you and Sister Yu have taken off the engagement, so shouldn't I call you brother-in-law?" Young Master Hao said. "Brother-in-law?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Forget it. I really can't afford it." "Hee. It seems like you don't like this sister of mine at all." Young Master Hao smirked. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "It's not that I'm resistant." "Then why?" Young Master Hao was slightly stunned and asked curiously. Qin Feiyong said, "I don't want to talk about feelings at the moment, and I don't want to let someone down." Young Master Hao was surprised. Could it be that this person already had someone he liked? A moment later, the two of them came to a lake. The lake was very large, covering an area of several miles. The lake water was clear, reflecting the blue sky and white clouds. In the center, there was a piece of land, about 1,000 feet long, like a small island, sitting in the center of the lake. "This is?" Qin Feiyong looked at the lake suspiciously. Young Master Hao said, "This is the Soothing Lake, and also where we live." "Soothing Lake?" Qin Feiyong was surprised and said, "Shouldn't I go to the Holy Tower?" All the disciples who entered the Holy Land either went to the Holy Tower or the Holy Peak. Why did young Master Hao bring him here? "The Holy Tower is where ordinary disciples stay, and you are my father's disciple. How can they compare to you?" Young Master Hao smiled proudly. "I see." Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. "Let's go." Young Master Hao smiled and soared into the sky, flying toward the small island in the center of the lake. Qin Feiyong followed closely behind young Master Hao, scanning the lake below. The surface of the lake was very calm, but there were turbulent waves below. He could even feel the aura of the emperor beasts under the lake. Young Master Hao explained, "There are thousands of beasts hiding in this soothing lake. Among them, there are 10 war emperor-level beasts, responsible for protecting us." "So many?" Qin Feiyong was shocked and asked, "What about the other beasts?" Young Master Hao said, "Sacred beasts? All of them?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. "Yes, all of them." Young Master Hao nodded. Qin Feiyong was speechless. For someone of his cultivation level, this place was simply a dragon's lair and a tiger's den. A dozen breaths later, the two of them landed on the small island. On the small island, the fragrance of flowers was everywhere, and the scenery was pleasant. Lush green grass and verdant little trees swayed in the wind, displaying endless vitality. A clear stream meandered across the entire island. The stream flowed slowly, and colorful fish jumped up and down, adding to the tranquility of the place. In the center of the island, there were a total of 3 courtyards, standing side by side, only 100 meters apart. According to young Master Hao, the first courtyard was Wang Yuer's residence. The second courtyard was young Master Hao's own. As for the third courtyard, it was Qin Feiyang's future residence. Qin Feiyang looked at them one by one. Compared to the second and third courtyards, the first courtyard was more beautiful and tidy. There were all kinds of flowers planted in the courtyard. On both sides of the gate, there were 2 vigorous peach trees, blooming with peach blossoms and a strong fragrance. At this moment, Wang Yuer was standing under the peach tree, and the petals fell down. Her hair and dress danced in the wind, making her look like a flower fairy, especially charming. Let me tell you, everything on this small island was basically arranged by Sister Yuer, so you'd better not destroy it, or she will definitely come and find trouble with you. Young Master Hao warned in a low voice. Qin Feiyang's head suddenly swelled a little. He did not expect to live in the same place as Wang Yuer. However, he was very satisfied with this place. Not only was the environment good, but it was also very quiet, very suitable for meditation. Thud. The two of them walked along a winding path and arrived in front of the third courtyard. This was originally Gong Sun Bei's residence, but later he moved to the Divine Envoy Hall because he had to take charge of the Divine Envoys. As young Master Hao spoke, he pushed open the gate of the courtyard and walked in. There was a pavilion in the courtyard, surrounded by a flower bed. Most of the flowers had withered. Many petals had fallen on the ground, and they were already rotten, emitting a rotten smell. On one side of the pavilion, there was a 2-story pavilion with carved beams and painted rafters, and it was quite charming. Young Master Hao smiled and said, "No one has lived here for a long time, and some places are a little messy. Clean it up yourself." "Okay." Qin Feiyang nodded. Young Master Hao looked up at the first courtyard and said in a low voice, "There's one more thing that I have to tell you. Don't enter my sister's courtyard without permission." "Why? Is there something that can't be exposed?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Isn't your imagination a little too rich?" Young Master Hao rolled his eyes and said, "She doesn't like others to disturb her." "I see." Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and said with a smile, "That's very similar to me. All right, you're all freaks. I'm the only normal one who likes to be lively. All right, I won't disturb you anymore. I'll go to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion for a while. I really hope to see your face soon." Young Master Hao looked at the sky and laughed foolishly. Then, he opened the portal and left without looking back. Miss Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment, shook his head, and began to tidy up the courtyard. Wang Yuer looked at Qin Feiyang from afar, and also entered the pavilion without saying a word. An hour later, Qin Feiyang cleaned up the courtyard inside and outside, then went to take a bath, changed into a clean set of clothes, and sat on the balcony on the second floor. He took out the jade slip that the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion gave him and carefully looked through it. Isn't this the legendary invisibility technique? 100 breaths passed. Qin Feiyang suddenly opened his eyes, his face full of excitement. This was a battle art that could make one invisible. It was called the concealment art. The concealment art did not have any offensive power, but it could hide one's body in the void and turn invisible. Even if you stood in front of others, they would not be able to see you. It could be said that as long as he mastered this concealment art, Qin Feiyang would be like a tiger that had grown wings. Then came the question. Why did the young lady of the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion give him such a precious battle art? Chapter 974. After thinking for a long time, Qin Feiyang couldn't figure it out. So, he put it aside for the time being and meditated on the concealment spell. Time flew. 3 days later, in the evening, Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and an obscure aura spread out from his body. The next moment, he disappeared on the terrace. And even his aura disappeared as if he had never appeared here. In fact, he was still on the terrace, but he had activated the concealment spell and no one could see him. Swish! Suddenly, a figure landed on the island out of thin air. It was Mr. Hao. In the past 3 days, he went to the Longfeng house on time every morning and came back on time at night. And when he saw Qin Feiyang meditating on the terrace, he didn't disturb Qin Feiyang for 3 days. But at this moment, seeing that there was no one on the terrace and there was no candlelight in the attic, Mr. Hao couldn't help but feel suspicious. Where did this guy go? He swooped down and landed in Qin Feiyang's courtyard, shouting, "Brother Mu, are you there?" No one answered. In fact, Qin Feiyang was now standing in front of Mr. Hao and waving at his eyes. But Mr. Hao didn't notice it at all. "Not here. This bastard is too unloyal. He didn't call me when he went out to have fun." After waiting for a long time and not hearing Qin Feiyang's response, Mr. Hao thought that Qin Feiyang had gone out. He cursed and returned to his courtyard. After Mr. Hao entered the attic, Qin Feiyang's figure appeared out of thin air. "It's really amazing." He looked at himself, his eyes full of surprise. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something and looked up at Wang Yuer's courtyard. Because it was not far away, he could clearly see that there were wisps of candlelight in the attic where Wang Yuer was. "If you don't give it to me, I'll get it myself." Qin Feiyang smiled, activated the concealment spell again, and walked into Wang Yuer's courtyard openly. In the courtyard, hundreds of flowers bloomed, competing for beauty. The strong fragrance of flowers pervaded every corner of the courtyard. Qin Feiyang stood in the flower bed and looked at the attic. The doors and windows were closed, and the candlelight came from a window on the left side of the first floor. He could clearly hear the sound of water coming from inside. "How do we get in?" Qin Feiyang hesitated. Although the concealment art could make him invisible, if he opened the window or door, it would definitely make a sound. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. There was a window on the second floor that wasn't closed. Immediately, he leaped into the air and slipped in quietly. When Qin Feiyang entered the room, his body stiffened. The room was not big, but the decorations were very cozy. There was a bed beside it, covered with light pink bedding. There was also a dressing table beside the bed. In addition to all kinds of decorations, there was also a pile of dresses and even a piece of underwear. Obviously, this was Wang Yuer's boudoir. "Don't look at indecent things." Qin Feiyang quickly looked away. But just as he was about to leave the room, he looked at the dressing table again. This was because he found an exquisite chinquin pouch under the underwear. He had seen this Cosmos bag before. It was the Cosmos bag that Wang Yuer usually used. The dress and underwear are all here. The Cosmos bag is also here. Could she be bathing downstairs? Qin Feiyang mumbled, his eyes shining. This was a good opportunity. Of course, this so-called good opportunity was not to peek at Wang Yuer bathing, but to seize the opportunity to take back the 10th part of the soul-tampering skill. He walked to the dressing table, grabbed the Cosmos bag, and began to search. Nothing. After searching for a while, he could not help but frown. There were a large number of herbs, elixirs, and even sacred weapons in the Cosmos bag, but he could not find the jade slip. This shouldn't be. Qin Feiyang muttered to himself. Tada! Suddenly, there was a series of footsteps downstairs. He quickly put the Cosmos bag back to its original position, restrained his aura to the extreme, and stood quietly by the side. After all, Wang Yuer was a 9-star combat sage. If he was not careful, she might discover him. Soon, a graceful figure entered the room. Qin Feiyang immediately turned his head and looked elsewhere. It was Wang Yuer, but the current Wang Yuer was simply deadly. She was wearing nothing except a white bath towel. Her 2 long legs, as well as half of her majestic twin peaks, were exposed. Her jade-like skin, her wet long hair, her languid demeanor, and her captivating eyes. Every part of her was emitting a fatal seduction. What the hell? Qin Feiyang cursed in his heart. Since he met this woman, he had been encountering such situations. Fortunately, he had strong willpower, otherwise, he would have had a nosebleed. After Wang Yuer entered the room, she looked at the clothes and Cosmos bag on the dressing table and did not find anything strange. Then she walked to the closet at the side, found a clean towel, and wiped her wet long hair. Inside the wardrobe, in addition to all kinds of long dresses, there were also many small and exquisite undergarments. This is too torturous. Qin Feiyang only glanced at it casually, but his heart was already restless. But now, he didn't dare to move. He could only stand there and try not to look. However, it was not over yet. After Wang Yuer wiped the water stains, she took off the bath towel wrapped around her body in front of Qin Feiyang. Immediately, Qin Feiyang felt an uncontrollable evil fire rising in his heart. His mouth was dry. The woman in front of him was completely standing in front of him. That slim waist, that soft and tender skin. When had he ever seen such a scene? The most torturous thing was that Wang Yue was not in a hurry to put on her clothes. She looked around in the closet as if she didn't know which one to wear. I shouldn't have broken in at this time. Qin Feiyang was extremely vexed. If Wang Yue found out, he would not only be known as a peeping Tom, but also suffer from Wang Yue's full revenge. About a dozen breaths later, the torture was finally over. Wang Yue found a sky blue long dress and put it on, which added a bit of elegance to her. Every color of clothes can give off a completely different flavor. This woman is really a natural beauty, Qin Feiyang murmured. Then Wang Yue sat on the edge of the bed, lowered her head, and said nothing. All of a sudden, she waved her hand, and a stream of light rushed out of her body. It was a jade slip, which was suspended in front of Wang Yue. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. No wonder he couldn't find it. It turned out that Wang Yue put it in her qi. He didn't expect this woman to be so cautious. However, the devil was 1 foot tall, and the priest 10 feet tall. Now this great opportunity was in front of him. He walked up silently, grabbed the jade slip, and put it in his chinkuan bag. At the same time, Wang Yue was stunned. She immediately straightened her body and scanned the void in surprise. What was going on? Where was the jade slip? Was there someone? She quickly looked around the room. But in the end, as if she had seen a ghost, a trace of panic appeared on her face. Because she didn't find anyone else in the room. She didn't even sense any other aura. Impossible. How can there be ghosts in this world? Even if there are ghosts, they can't snatch this jade slip. Someone must be behind this. Whoosh. She suddenly got up, her face full of anger. She rushed out of the window at lightning speed, closed her eyes, and sensed carefully. However, she didn't find a third person's aura on the island except for Mr. House. Who is it? Get out here. She was so angry that she couldn't help but roar. Her voice resounded in all directions, and her eyes were as cold as ice. What's wrong, sister? Young Master Hao ran out in a hurry and looked at Wang Yue in surprise. Wang Yue said in a deep voice, "Someone stole the 10th part of the soul refining technique in front of me." Mr. Hao was a little confused. How could someone steal the 10th part of the soul refining technique in front of this demoness? After coming back to his senses, Mr. Hao said with a smile, "Sister, you must be joking. Do I look like I'm joking?" Wang Yue suddenly lowered her head and stared at Mr. Hao with a sharp gaze. Mr. Hao's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, she didn't seem to be joking. Whoosh. He landed beside Wang Yue in a flash and asked, "What's going on?" Just now, I took out the jade slip and was sitting by the bed thinking about something. But suddenly, the jade slip disappeared in front of my eyes. Wang Yue said. This, Mr. Hao was stunned. It disappeared in front of his eyes. That was too strange. Was it haunted? He scanned the island in surprise. This situation could only be explained by a ghost. Whoosh. Suddenly, Wang Yue looked at Qin Feiyang's courtyard, her eyes flickering. Seeing this, Mr. Hao frowned and said, "Sister, are you suspecting your fiancé? Besides you, he's the only one who knows about the 10th part of the soul refining technique. Who else could it be?" Wang Yue gritted her teeth and had already locked onto Qin Feiyang. It can't be him, because when I came back, he wasn't here. He should have gone out. Mr. Hao said. Not here? Wang Yue raised her eyebrows and said, "Before I took a shower, I specially observed him. At that time, he was still on the balcony. How could he not be here?" It's true, Mr. Hao said. Wang Yue didn't believe it. She flew over Qin Feiyang's courtyard and shouted, "Moo, don't pretend. I know you're inside. Get out." Sister, he's not here. Would I lie to you? Mr. Hao looked at her helplessly and said. Wang Yue turned a deaf ear and continued to shout, "Aren't you very powerful? Why do you dare to admit what you did? What kind of man are you?" However, there was dead silence in the courtyard. Not even a shadow appeared. He's really not here? Wang Yue raised her eyebrows. If it wasn't this bastard, who else could it be? The island was guarded by emperor beasts. If someone really sneaked in, It was impossible for there to be no sound at all. Sister, this matter is too strange. Let's go to the old man immediately, Mr. House said in a deep voice. He sneaked in without anyone noticing and snatched the 10th part of the soul refining technique under Wang Yuer's nose. This was definitely not something an ordinary person could do. Wang Yuer nodded. The two opened a portal and were about to walk in, but at this moment, Qin Feiyang appeared out of thin air in the sky. It's already dark. Where are you going? Looking at Mr. Hao and Wang Yuer, Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously, Where have you been? Mr. Hao frowned and said. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, I went out for a walk. What's wrong? There was a ghost incident just now, Mr. Hao said. A ghost incident? Chapter 975. Young Master Hao gave a brief account of what had happened. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Of course, he knew it, but he had to pretend. When he came back to his senses, he looked at Wang Yuer angrily and said, I told you to give me the 10th part of the soul refining technique, but you didn't listen. Now it's been snatched away. What do you think we should do? The 10th part is mine. Even if it's snatched away, what does it have to do with you? Wang Yuer was already full of anger. At this moment, when she heard Qin Feiyang's rebuke, she was undoubtedly angrier and directly went against Qin Feiyang. Yours? Are you kidding? If you didn't snatch the 10th part with your relationship with Mr. Wang, how could it be yours? Let me tell you, if you don't get the 10th part back, I'll divorce you. Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Young Master Hao's face changed and he hurriedly said, Brother Mu, you can't joke about this. I never joke. Qin Feiyang said expressionlessly, then quickly swooped down and disappeared in the attic. Divorce me? How dare you divorce me? Wang Yuer was in disbelief. Although she didn't agree to the engagement, she could only accept it. But now, he actually threatened to divorce her? This was simply a humiliation to her. She couldn't tolerate it. She shouted at the attic, Okay, I can't ask for more. You'd better hurry up. Seeing that Wang Yuer was also angry, young Master Hao rubbed his forehead and said helplessly, Sister, can you calm down? I'm very calm. Wang Yuer said, If you're calm, why did you say such angry words? If Ancestor Mu really divorces you now, do you know how many people will laugh at you behind your back? Young Master Hao said earnestly. I'm not afraid. Wang Yuer said, You're not afraid, but what about Aunt, Uncle, and Mr. Wang? They'll definitely die of anger. Young Master Hao sighed. This marriage was a mistake in the first place. After saying that, Wang Yuer turned around and left angrily. What a pair of enemies. Young Master Hao looked at the two courtyards and felt a headache coming on. The waning moon hung high in the sky, and the night was hazy. Qin Feiyang activated the concealment spell and stood on the balcony, looking at Wang Yuer's back with a smile in his eyes. Although this woman was a little unreasonable, she was actually quite cute. A moment later, he retracted his gaze and took out the jade slip. No matter what, he had finally obtained the 10th part of the soul refining technique. He immediately turned around and entered the attic to comprehend in peace. And not long after, Chief Pagoda Master received young Master Hao's notice and sent people to investigate the island. However, they obviously didn't find anything. The next morning, Qin Feiyang walked out of the attic and stood in the flower bed. Breathing in the fresh air, he felt refreshed. In just one night, he had mastered the soul refining technique. Of course, this was all thanks to the inheritance of the first Pagoda Master. If not for the insights and profoundness of the soul tempering art in the inheritance, given his current ability, he would not have been able to comprehend it no matter how much time he had. The ancients were right. As long as you are in a good mood, you will feel comfortable. Qin Feiyang stretched. With a slight thought, a stream of light swept out from between his eyebrows. This was a pentagram, blooming with dazzling light. And in the center of the pentagram, there were 3 words floating. Soul refining technique. The biggest advantage of the soul refining technique was that it didn't need to be deliberately activated. It would automatically temper one's mental strength. In other words, his current spiritual power was increasing every moment. Although it was not obvious, if he sensed it carefully, he could still detect it. Creak. Suddenly, there was the sound of the door opening. Qin Feiyong hurriedly waved his hand, and the pentagram turned into a stream of light and merged into between his eyebrows. Then he looked up and saw young Master Hao coming out from next door. "Morning." Qin Feiyong smiled and greeted him. Young Master Hao was startled. He looked at Qin Feiyong, as if he had discovered a new continent, and asked curiously, "Why aren't you cultivating today?" Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes at him and said speechlessly, "Do you really think I'm a cultivation maniac? That's good. Today is the day of the Dragon and Phoenix wine auction. Let's go and have a seat." Young Master Hao laughed. "Not interested." Qin Feiyong shook his head. Young Master Hao was immediately displeased. "Why are you so boring?" Qin Feiyong said, "It's not that I'm boring, it's that you're too bored. What's so good about that Dragon and Phoenix wine?" "Tasteless." Young Master Hao pursed his lips. Qin Feiyong shook his head and laughed bitterly. Did this have anything to do with taste? Buzz. At this moment, the image crystal in Qin Feiyong's arms buzzed. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed, and he looked at young Master Hao and said, "I have something to do. Let's meet another day." After saying that, he turned around and entered the attic, closing the door behind him. How did I make such a friend? Young Master Hao was stunned, then shook his head and sighed, and also opened the teleportation door and left. In the attic, Qin Feiyong took out the image crystal, and Fatso's shadow quickly condensed. "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong asked. Fatso said, "Someone is looking for you." "Looking for me?" Qin Feiyong was stunned and said, "Who is it?" "Pei," Fatso said. Qin Feiyong's eyes suddenly lit up and said, "Where is he now?" "It's right outside my cave abode," Fatso said. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, "Give me the coordinates. I'll be there right away." After getting the coordinates, Qin Feiyong opened a teleportation door. The next moment, he appeared in a cave abode. The cave was only 100 feet long. Other than a praying mat, a stone table, and 4 stone stools, there was nothing else. It was quite simple. However, it was very clean. Fatso walked forward and pointed to the door of the cave. He said to Qin Feiyong, "He's outside." Qin Feiyong said, "Let him in." Fatso said loudly, "Senior brother Pei, come in." Tada! Accompanied by the silent sounds of footsteps, Pei entered the cave and entered Qin Feiyong's sight. However, at this moment, Pei was no longer as carefree and unrestrained as before. Instead, he seemed to be in agony. Qin Feiyong sighed secretly and pointed to the stone stool beside him. He smiled and said, "Have a seat." Pei looked at Qin Feiyong, who was sitting on a stone stool with his head hung low, remaining silent. Qin Feiyong also sat opposite Pei and said, "They must have told you everything." "Yes." Pei nodded. Qin Feiyong asked, "What are your plans then?" "I don't know. I'm very conflicted now." Pei shook his head with a look of agony on his face. Qin Feiyong said, "I can understand how you feel, but he's still your father after all. What are you guys talking about?" Fatso looked at the two of them in confusion. Qin Feiyong looked at Fatso and sighed. "Pei Changfeng is his father." "What?" Fatso was dumbfounded. "Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Is he really dead?" Pei finally looked up and asked Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong nodded. Pei fell silent again. After a long while, he said, "Can you take me to the place where he was buried? I'd like to bring his body back." "Of course. However, is this your idea or your uncle's?" Qin Feiyong asked. Pei's uncle was naturally the leader of the divine python tribe. "It's my idea," Pei said. "What about your uncle? Doesn't he want to bring your father's body back?" Qin Feiyong asked with a frown. "He definitely wants to, but he hasn't gotten over his grief yet. After all, they're biological brothers. We may be father and son, but we've never interacted with each other before. In fact, I don't have any impression of him at all," Pei said bitterly. Qin Feiyong smiled. It was completely understandable. After all, Pei Changfeng left the divine python tribe not long after Pei was born. How could Pei have any impression of him? "When do you plan to go?" Qin Feiyong asked. Pei said, "If you have time, I'd like to go immediately." Qin Feiyong stood up and said with a smile, The deceased should be respected. I'll make time for you even if I don't have time. Let's go. Thank you. Pei stood up and bowed to Qin Feiyang to express his gratitude. He then opened the portal, and the two of them entered one after another. Fatty pondered for a moment, then also entered the portal. In the square of the Pill Pagoda, the things that were used for the ceremony a few days ago had been removed, and peace was restored. In the center of the square, the old man in black was still sitting cross-legged on the ground like a rock, guarding the teleportation altar. Greetings, Elder. After Qin Feiyang and the other two appeared, they immediately bowed to the old man in black. The black-clothed old man was the law-enforcing elder of the Pill Tower. His status was quite high, and he was also extremely strong. Normally, he did not smile, but when he saw Qin Feiyang, a trace of a smile crawled onto his old face. Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and said, "Elder, the three of us would like to make a trip to the 9 regions." The old man in black said, "If the people of the Central Divine Kingdom want to go to the 9 regions, they have to get the Chief Pagoda Master's permission first. Do you have it?" "It's too troublesome to go to the 9 regions with the Chief Pagoda Master's permission." Qin Feiyang furrowed his brows without leaving a trace. He shook his head and said, "No." The old man in black said apologetically, "I'm sorry, but I can't let you go." Compared to the first time they met, his attitude was much more polite. However, Pei couldn't help but feel anxious. He pleaded, "Elder, I'm going to the 9 regions for no other reason than to retrieve my father's body. Please make an exception." "Body?" The old man in black was stunned. He looked Pei up and down for a moment and said, "You're Pei from the Divine Python tribe?" "Yes, I am." Pei nodded. The old man in black said, "As far as I know, your father went missing, right?" "Yes. But now we've found him, but he's already dead." Pei looked sorrowful and his eyes were filled with pain. "I see. All right then, you can go, but you only have 3 days. You must come back within 3 days." The old man in black hesitated and nodded. "Thank you, Elder." Pei hurriedly bowed and thanked him. The old man in black waved his hand, and his battle chi surged and merged into the teleportation altar. Soon, the teleportation altar was activated. Qin Feiyang and the other two jumped onto the altar one after another, and their figures quickly disappeared. The 9th region, in the central square of the Ice Crystal City. No one was allowed to set foot here. Chapter 976. But suddenly, there was a deafening buzzing sound in the quiet square. What's going on? The group of guards looked toward the center of the square like startled rabbits. At that moment, their eyes widened. The teleportation altar was awakened. One of the leading guards shouted, "Quick, quick, quick, be more spirited." There was only one explanation for the awakening of the teleportation altar. The big shots of the Central Divine Kingdom had arrived. Whoosh! Finally, under the watchful eyes of the guards, 3 figures appeared above the teleportation altar out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang and the other two. So young. Looking at the appearance of Qin Feiyang and the other two, the group of guards was a little stunned. But the next moment, they bowed in unison and said, "Greetings, my lords." "My lords?" Fatso was stunned and chuckled. "That's a good name." The leading guard said respectfully, "My lords, is there anything I can do for you?" "No. You can go about your business." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and immediately opened the teleportation gate, leaving with Fatso and Pei. "Captain, who are they? They look so young, but their auras are so strong." Several guards whispered with fear in their eyes. "I've never been to the Central Divine Kingdom. How would I know? But I'm sure that they have a certain status in the Central Divine Kingdom," the leading guard said. "What do you mean?" One of the guards asked suspiciously. "Aura. The aura of the 3 of them is very extraordinary, especially the one who spoke. Although he looks ordinary, he exudes the aura of a king. Moreover, I can sense a great saint's aura from him," the leading guard said solemnly. "Sage aura? Then isn't he a battle sage?" "He's already a battle sage at such a young age. How terrifying is his talent?" The group of guards was dumbfounded. The legendary Central Divine Kingdom was really scary, but they would never have thought that the person they were afraid of was Qin Feiyang, the person they wanted to kill. At the same time, the third zone, Qin Feiyang and the other two arrived above a glacier. Below, the mountain ranges were covered in white snow. Qin Feiyang scanned the glacier below and said, "Your father is buried here." "Where?" Pei was a little nervous and a little hesitant. "This used to be an ice valley. Later, in order to bury your father, I shattered the ice valley. As for the exact location, even now, I don't know. However, it won't be difficult to find him." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, his big hand reached out in the air, and Saint Might poured down like a waterfall. Rumble. Immediately, the glacier shattered, the snow melted, and a large crater gradually appeared. As the glaciers and snow continued to fuse together, the crater grew deeper and deeper, reaching a diameter of over a dozen miles. Looking down from the sky, it looked like a bottomless pit. It was a spectacular sight. About 10 breaths passed. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up and he said to Pei Yi, "Come with me." Whoosh! The three of them immediately turned in the air and swooped down into the crater. Before they reached the bottom, an ice sculpture entered their line of sight. The ice sculpture stood at the bottom of the crater, and cold air was rising. And inside, there was a middle-aged man in purple clothes lying down. He looked to be in his 40s and had a rough face. There were some white hair at his temples, and his clothes were tattered. There were also bruises all over his body. It was Pei Changfeng. Although it had been more than a year since Qin Feiyang buried him, his body was still the same as before. There were no signs of decay at all. Whoosh! The three of them landed in front of the ice sculpture one after another. Qin Feiyang and Fatso looked at each other and silently took a few steps back. Pei looked at the person in the ice sculpture and did not go forward for a long time, seemingly a little reluctant. Thump! After a long time, he knelt in front of the ice sculpture feebly. "Do you know? Although I often tell others that I hate you very much and don't want to see you, I've actually been waiting for you to come back. Do you know how much I yearned for your love and care? But in the end, you made me wait for the news of your death. Do you know how much pain and despair I felt? I remember when I was young, I was so envious of other children who acted coquettishly in front of their fathers. I wanted you to hug me too, but this little wish was just an extravagant hope in my eyes. I can't accept it. Can you tell me what you've been doing all these years? Have you ever thought of coming back to see me? Answer me." Pei muttered to himself, tears blurring his vision. He was getting more and more emotional. In the end, he lay on the ice sculpture and screamed hysterically. Looking at Pei Yi's miserable appearance, Fatso also felt sad and said, "Boss, I can't take it anymore. Let's go out for a walk." "I'll go too," Qin Feiyang said. Pei finally saw his father. Although he had passed away, he definitely had a lot to say to him. Besides, Pei needed some time to get a grip on his emotions. The two of them did not disturb Pei and quietly flew out of the deep pit. Fatty glanced at the vast expanse of white glaciers and shook his head with a sigh. Things in this world are really coincidental. Yeah. When I found out that Pei Changfeng was Pei's father, I was also shocked. Qin Feiyang said. Fatso frowned and said, "But how did Pei Changfeng die? Is it really an unsolved case?" Qin Feiyang also fell into deep thought. Although they were not sure about Pei Changfeng's specific strength, they could guess that he must be very strong after knowing his identity. After all, if Pei Changfeng was not strong, the previous chief of the Divine Python tribe would not have let him inherit the position of chief. Therefore, there were probably not many people in the 9 regions who could kill Pei Changfeng. There might not even be one. Boss, Fat Lord suddenly thought of the Black Lion tribe, the Red Flame tribe, and the Sea tribe. Fatso said, "Is there a problem?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked, "I don't know." However, when the chiefs of the 3 tribes came here to look for the Ice Blade, does it mean that they already knew about the existence of the Ice Blade in advance? If that's the case, how did they know? Did they receive the news by chance? Or did they see the Ice Blade with their own eyes? Fatso's face was full of suspicion. Qin Feiyang was surprised and said, You mean, the people of the three tribes may have seen Pei Changfeng before? It's possible. Fatso nodded. Qin Feiyang frowned and pondered for a while, then said, if they really saw him, they might know the cause of his death. Let's go. We'll go to the three tribes immediately. By the way, do you have the coordinates of the three tribes? Although it was just a guess, it was still necessary to verify it. Of course. Back then, Master Fatty, Brother Wolf, and the others had ransacked the three big tribes. Chapter 977. Black Lion Tribe. In a small courtyard, two black-clothed old men sat opposite each other. Outside the small courtyard, a group of youths were naked and practicing martial arts on the snow. Although they were very young, only 12 or 13 years old, and their faces were red from the cold, none of them complained. Their faces were resolute. Since the chief and the high priest were killed, our Black Lion tribe is no longer what it used to be, but our hope is not yet destroyed. Yes, these children are our hope. It's a pity that Qin Feiyang and those bastards robbed our treasury. Otherwise, with our foundation, these children wouldn't have to work so hard. Looking at those youths, the two black-clothed old men's faces were full of gratification, but there was also a trace of hatred in their eyes. This hatred was naturally targeted at Qin Feiyang and the others. Haven't you heard of the saying, no pain, no gain? But at this moment, with a faint laugh, Qin Feiyang and Fatso appeared out of thin air in the courtyard. Who is it? The two old men were shocked and immediately stood up, looking at the two of them warily. The group of youths outside also stopped practicing martial arts and looked at the two of them curiously. The tribesmen further away also put down what they were doing and came over, looking extremely unfriendly. Qin Feiyang glanced at the tribesmen of the Black Lion tribe indifferently, looked at the two old men and asked, who is in charge of the Black Lion tribe now? Us. I'm the Grand Elder of the Black Lion tribe. I'm the second elder. May I ask why the two of you have come to our Black Lion tribe? The two old men introduced themselves and asked. Qin Feiyang did not answer and asked, so, as long as Cui Qingqing knows, you also know? Cui Qingqing was the chief of the Black Lion tribe. What on earth do you want? The two old men frowned. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, took out his identity token, and said, I'm from the Central Divine Kingdom's main tower. I'm here to investigate the cause of a person's death. The Central Divine Kingdom. Immediately, everyone's eyes trembled, and their faces were filled with shock and fear. Because none of them had been to the Central Divine Kingdom, they had no idea what the token in Qin Feiyang's hand represented. But, if the other party was really from the Central Divine Kingdom, he could not afford to offend them. The two old men looked at each other and bowed. Greetings, sirs. Qin Feiyang nodded, put away the token, and said, do you know someone called Pei Changfeng? Pei Changfeng? Hearing this name, a trace of suspicion crept into their eyes. That's him. Fatso waved his hand, and Pei Zhongfeng's shadow quickly condensed in the void. Who is he? The members of the Black Lion tribe looked at Pei Zhongfeng's figure with puzzlement on their faces. However, Qin Feiyang caught a hint of bewilderment in the eyes of the Grand Elder and Second Elder. In such a situation, doubt and bewilderment meant two different things. Doubt meant that they were completely unaware, and bewilderment meant that the two of them had definitely seen Pei Zhongfeng, but at least they knew of his existence. However, Qin Feiyang did not point it out and said, have you never seen him before? No. Everyone shook their heads. The Grand Elder and Second Elder also shook their heads. Fatso's eyes revealed disappointment and said in a low voice, it seems that we guessed wrong. No, we didn't guess wrong. It's just that someone refuses to tell the truth. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Fatso was surprised. Qin Feiyang looked at the Grand Elder and said indifferently, tell me everything you know. They know? Fatso was stunned for a moment, then glared at the two of them and shouted, since you know, then why don't you say it? Are you courting death? The two of them trembled both physically and mentally, and were a little flustered by Qin Feiyang and Fatso's gaze. Don't be nervous. As long as you tell me the truth, I won't hurt a single clansman of your Black Lion tribe. But if you dare to continue hiding it, your Black Lion tribe will face the danger of being exterminated today, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. But at the end of his sentence, the holy might roared out and instantly enveloped the entire Black Lion tribe. Everyone was suffocating under the pressure. The two old men were also trembling both physically and mentally, their eyes filled with disbelief. He looked so young, but he was actually a battle saint. As for the Black Lion tribe, as a super tribe in the third region, they once had a war saint. That was the leader and the high priest. However, these two people had both died at the hands of Qin Feiyang in the end, so the strongest one was the Nine-Star War Sect. Facing a war saint, the Nine-Star War Sect had no power to resist. Seeing that the deterrence had been achieved, Qin Feiyang also withdrew his holy might, looked at the Grand Elder, and said indifferently, "Speak." The Grand Elder hurriedly nodded and said, "We have indeed seen him before." "You've really seen him before?" Qin Feiyang and Fatso were stunned. Then Fatso asked, "Where have you seen him?" The Grand Elder wiped his cold sweat and said with his head lowered, "White Crane Mountain Range." Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Where is White Crane Mountain Range?" The Grand Elder said, "Not far, it's in the south, only a dozen miles away from here." Qin Feiyang frowned. "What is Pei Changfeng doing in White Crane Mountain Range?" "He is fighting with someone." The Grand Elder said, "Who?" Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed. The Grand Elder shook his head and said, "We don't know, but we know that they are brothers." "Brothers?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said, "How do you know that they are brothers?" The Grand Elder said, "Because Pei Changfeng calls that person little brother." Little brother? Qin Feiyang and the Grand Elder looked at each other. Could it be that the person who fought with Pei Changfeng back then was the current leader of the Divine Python tribe? But wasn't this too inconceivable? Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, "Do you know what that person looks like?" I know. It's a middle-aged man. His cultivation is very strong, and his temperament is also very extraordinary." The Grand Elder raised his hand and waved. Battle chi surged and quickly condensed into a figure in the void. "It's really him." Qin Feiyang and the Grand Elder looked at the virtual figure, their faces full of disbelief. This person in front of them, if not the current leader of the Divine Python tribe, who else could it be? In other words, what the leader of the Divine Python tribe said to Qin Feiyang at that time was all lies, and Pei Changfeng's death was completely a conspiracy. Qin Feiyang said, "I want to know the details." Good. As long as you don't hurt us, we will tell you everything." The Grand Elder and the Grand Elder nodded. "I remember that back then, we were discussing some matters with the leader, but suddenly we heard a loud noise. Out of curiosity, we rushed to the White Crane Mountain Range and happened to see two people fighting, and we also heard their conversation." The two slowly told the unknown secret of that year. The more Qin Feiyang and the Grand Elder listened, the more surprised they became. It turned out that, back then, the previous leader of the Divine Python tribe did want to pass the position to Pei Changfeng, and it was not as the current leader of the Divine Python tribe said, that Pei Changfeng did not want to take over the position. On the contrary, Pei Changfeng was very willing. But the current leader of the Divine Python tribe had long coveted the position of the leader. So he set up a trap, tricked Pei Changfeng into coming to the 9 major areas, and assassinated him. In other words, Pei Changfeng died in the hands of his younger brother. Fatso clenched his hands and said in disgust, "He even killed his own brother. This person is vicious. Are status and power really so important? This is what it means to know what is in a person's heart. Before you completely understand a person, you will never know what kind of person he is." Chapter 978. The Grand Elder said, later, Pei Zhangfeng was no match for him. He seemed to have been poisoned in advance, but he managed to escape in the end. Poisoned? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Yes. His face turned black, and his lips turned purple. There was no other explanation other than being poisoned. The Grand Elder nodded. Qin Feiyang pointed at the phantom of the Divine Python tribe's leader and said, "Then did he continue to chase after Pei Zhangfeng?" "Of course. We searched everywhere, but Pei Zhangfeng seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. He never appeared again. Not long after, this person also left. From then on, he never appeared again. The Grand Elder said. Qin Feiyang said, "This matter is of great importance. Are you sure that what you're saying is the truth?" "I swear." Not only did we see it, but the people of the Crimson Smoke tribe and the Azure Sea tribe also saw it, because our three tribes surrounded the White Crane Mountain Range in a tripartite formation. If there was any movement in the White Crane Mountain Range, we would hear it. At that time, the leaders of the Crimson Smoke tribe and the Azure Sea tribe, the high priest, and the elders were also nearby to observe. However, because Pei Zhangfeng and Li Zhangfeng were too strong, and they had the sacred weapon in their hands, we all hid in the dark, not daring to show ourselves. The Grand Elder said. Qin Feiyang said, "So later, your three tribes searched everywhere for Pei Zhangfeng, wanting to get the sacred weapon on his body? How do you know?" The Grand Elder was surprised. Fatso sneered. "What a joke. Don't you know who we are? Do you think you can hide that from us?" The Grand Elder bitterly smiled and nodded. "That's right. At that time, Pei Zhangfeng was heavily injured and poisoned. The people of our three tribes all believed that he wouldn't live for long, so we searched everywhere. The heavens do not disappoint those who persevere. Finally, one day, we found his body. But at that time," Qin Feiyang said, "at that time, Qin Feiyang appeared. Not only did he kill the leaders of your three tribes, but he also stole the sacred weapon, right?" The Grand Elder looked at Qin Feiyang and Li Zhangfeng, dumbfounded. They even knew this. These two were too scary. "Umph. Serves you right." Qin Feiyang snorted coldly. Yes. The Grand Elder nodded his head and bowed, extremely terrified. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and asked, "Who else knows about this except for the three big tribes?" "No." The Grand Elder shook his head. "Very well. From today onwards, all of you will keep this secret to yourselves, because once it is leaked out, it will definitely bring about a calamity to all of you." Qin Feiyang said. "Understood." The Grand Elder hurriedly nodded his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Fatso and said, "Let's go." Fatso opened the teleportation gate, and the two were about to enter. But at this moment, the Grand Elder's eyes flashed. He stretched out his hand and said, "Sirs, please wait." "What is it?" Qin Feiyang stopped and turned his head to look at the Grand Elder in confusion. The Great Clan Elder took out a recording crystal and said, "I still have a recording from that year. It should be useful to you." "Recording?" Qin Feiyang and the Grand Elder looked at each other. Fatso was surprised and asked, "What recording?" The Grand Elder said, "It's the recording of Pei Changfeng and that person fighting. It also recorded their complete conversation." The two of them were stunned. With the recording, wasn't it equivalent to irrefutable evidence? Qin Feiyang immediately took out the recording crystal and said with a smile, "Well done, quickly send it to me." However, the Grand Elder did not immediately send it to Qin Feiyang, as if he had something to say, but did not dare to say it. Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously, but soon understood that this person obviously wanted to get some benefits. He said, "Fatso, give them some body-tempering pills." "Body tempering pills?" The Grand Elder frowned. Who didn't have body-tempering pills? "This is not an ordinary body-tempering pill." Fatso coldly snorted and waved his hand. Accompanied by a dazzling light, hundreds of pills appeared on the ground in front of the Grand Elder. These pills basically all had 4 pill patterns, and there were even some that had 5 pill patterns. The Grand Elder was stunned. The people of the Black Lion tribe were also dumbfounded. The eyes of those youths were filled with desire. Although the body-tempering pills were very ordinary and cheap, body-tempering pills with pill patterns were rare, especially with so many pill patterns. As everyone knew, the more pill patterns there were, the better the effect. And these 4 and 5 pill patterns body-tempering pills, it was no exaggeration to say that just one pill was enough to let a newcomer lay a solid foundation. Therefore, to the youths of the Black Lion tribe, these body-tempering pills were more precious than any high-grade pills. However, when the Grand Elder of the Black Lion tribe came back to his senses, he was still not very satisfied. "Don't be too greedy, or else don't talk about benefits. Your lives might not even be saved." Qin Feiyang lightly said. The Grand Elder's eyes trembled. For a moment, he was blinded by greed and forgot that the person in front of him was a battle sage. He did not dare to hesitate any longer and hurriedly established a contract with Qin Feiyang. Then, he sent the video to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang did not stay any longer and brought Fatso back to the place where Pei Changfeng was buried. Pei had calmed down a lot and stood silently in front of the ice sculpture, his tears dry. Qin Feiyang walked over and patted Pei on the shoulder, saying, "It's getting late. We should go back." "Okay." Pei nodded and took another deep look at Pei Changfeng in the ice sculpture before keeping it in his heaven and earth bag. Qin Feiyang said, "I've been wanting to ask you a question." "What is it?" Pei looked at him suspiciously. "Where's your mother?" Qin Feiyang said. "Mother." Pei couldn't help but clench his fists tightly, his eyes filled with pain. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Forget it if you don't want to answer." "Phew." Pei heaved a long sigh and said, "I heard from my second uncle that ever since my father left, my mother had been depressed. When I was 1.5 years old, she passed away from depression." Passed away from depression. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. If it were in the past, he would definitely believe it. However, now that he knew the truth, Pei's mother's death was probably not that simple. Fatso said, "Boss, should we tell him the truth? Let's wait for a while." Qin Feiyang thought about it and said to himself, Pei's heart was now full of scars. If he were to be told the truth at this time, he would probably break down. Buzz. Next, Qin Feiyang opened the portal and the three of them arrived at the Ice Crystal City in the 9th zone. He then opened the teleportation altar and directly returned to the main pagoda. Next, Pei returned to the Divine Python tribe to bury Pei Changfeng. Qin Feiyang and Fatso also returned to the Warrior Mountain Range and the Sacred Ground. Calming Lake. It was quiet and peaceful. Qin Feiyang sat in the hall of the attic and looked at the image in the void in front of him. In the image, Pei Changfeng and the current leader of the Divine Python tribe were fighting fiercely in the sky above a mountain range. Blood splattered and the mountains and rivers were shattered. And just as the Grand Elder of the Black Lion tribe said, Pei Changfeng did show signs of being poisoned. In the end, the leader of the Divine Python tribe suddenly took out a long spear and pierced Pei Changfeng's heart. The long spear was black and shining, and its sharpness could split the sky. It was also a sacred weapon. After that, Pei Changfeng escaped from the mountain range with the ice blade. Power. Status. What a harmful thing. Qin Feiyang sighed deeply and waved his hand. The image disappeared, and then he put away the image crystal, got up and walked to the balcony on the 2nd floor. He sat cross-legged and closed his eyes to meditate. The next morning. Chapter 979. Dragon Phoenix House. Inside a private room, Qin Feiyang sat next to the tea table and looked at Wu Yang standing in front of him. While drinking tea, he asked, "Why did you ask me to come here?" Wu Yang respectfully said, "I have a piece of news. It's about a 7th grade alchemy fire." Qin Feiyang's arm trembled. He put down the teacup and said, "Tell me." Wu Yang said, "Somewhere in Qinghai, a cluster of 7th grade alchemy fire is about to appear." Qinghai. Qin Feiyang frowned and asked, "Is this news true?" "It's true." Wu Yang nodded. "Who else knows?" Qin Feiyang asked. Wu Yang said, "According to my father, this alchemy fire was first discovered by the people in the tower, so the people in the tower must know about it." Qin Feiyang frowned. The people in the tower found it. How did the Qilin tribe know about it? To tell you the truth, not only the Qilin tribe, but several other tribes also have people in the tower, and their status is not low. So, as long as it's not a particularly secret, we can basically know it in the first place, Wu Yang said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized. He didn't expect that not only the Mujia, but also the major tribes have spies in the tower. This tower is really a mix of dragons and snakes. Qinghai is a very dangerous place. With my ability, I'm sure I can't get the alchemy fire. So I can only tell you this news. You have to find a way. Wu Yang said. He looked a little nervous. How dangerous is it? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. This so-called Qinghai, He has never been there, and even heard very little about it. I don't know, but I heard from my father that even a war emperor may not return, Wu Yang said. This, Qin Feiyang was surprised. That's right. Last time, the chief said that there was something for him to deal with, and the destination was Qinghai. Could it be that the thing to deal with is the alchemy fire? Qin Feiyang lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then looked at Wu Yang and said, Is there any other news? Yes. Because you killed Wu Jian. Our leader is thinking of a way to deal with you, Wu Yang said. Frankly speaking, he still felt like he was living in a dream. One had to know that Wu Jian was a genuine 9-star battle saint. Although he had suppressed his cultivation level, it was still unbelievable that he could be killed in an instant by this person. Deal with me? Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. He was not surprised at all. Wu Jian was a genius of the Qilin tribe, and his future was limitless. If the leader of the Qilin tribe did not come to find trouble with him, then that would truly be strange. Qin Feiyang said, When he thinks of a way to deal with me, you have to tell me immediately. No matter how much they disdained the Qilin tribe, they were still a super tribe with countless combat emperors. They had to be on guard. All right, Wu Yang nodded. Then, he looked like he wanted to say something. Qin Feiyang glanced at him and said indifferently, I like people who are straightforward. Just say what you want to say. Wu Yang gritted his teeth and said, When can I be free? When you fulfill my conditions, you will be free. Take out your image crystal and build a contract bridge. It will be convenient for us to contact each other in the future. Qin Feiyang smiled and took out his image crystal. Wu Yang sighed deeply and helplessly. He also took out his image crystal. After the contract bridge was completed, Qin Feiyang stood up and opened the portal to leave. I can't go on like this. I must find a way to get rid of his control. Looking at the portal that disappeared, Wu Yang's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. Because he knew that even if he fulfilled Qin Feiyang's conditions, Qin Feiyang might not let him go. He must strike first to gain the upper hand. Get rid of my control, naive. At the same time, Soothing Lake, Qin Feiyang stood in the courtyard with a cold smile in his eyes. When he saw Wu Yang, he had been secretly spying on Wu Yang's inner thoughts. Therefore, he knew all of Wu Yang's thoughts clearly. It was just as Wu Yang thought. Even if Wu Yang fulfilled his conditions, he would not let him go. Because of the incident with Zhuan, he hated and disliked anyone who took the blood evil pill from the bottom of his heart. Such people should not live in this world. Whoosh! At this moment, a purple figure broke through the air and arrived. Qin Feiyang looked up and saw that it was Gongsun Bei. Are you used to this place? Gongsun Bei landed in Qin Feiyang's courtyard and asked with a smile. It's okay. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Lord Gongsun, do you have something to tell me? Sigh. Why are you calling me Lord? You are too polite. Although I have finished my apprenticeship, I am still the Chief Tower Master's disciple. You can call me Senior Brother. Gongsun Bei smiled. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Gongsun Bei said, I am indeed here to ask you to do something. Please say it, Senior Brother. Qin Feiyang said. Wait. Gongsun Bei looked at young Master Hao in Wang Yu's courtyard and said loudly, You Junior Brother, come out. Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Why did he ask Wang Yu and young Master how to come out? After a while, Wang Yu walked out of the attic in a white dress. Her hair fluttered in the wind, and she looked like a fairy in a painting. She was young and beautiful. She looked at Gongsun Bei and Qin Feiyang. Wang Yu frowned slightly, then flew up and landed in front of Gongsun Bei. She looked very intimate and said with a smile, Big Brother Gongsun, what are you doing? Let's talk later. Gongsun Bei smiled and looked at young Master Hao's courtyard. However, young Master Hao did not come out. Did he go to the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion again? Gongsun Bei looked at Qin Feiyang and Wang Yu and frowned. Should be. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. If young Master Hao is not at Calm Heart Lake, then he must be at the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion. He's really persistent. Gongsun Bei sighed helplessly and took out an image crystal to send a message to young Master Hao. After a while, young Master Hao appeared in the courtyard with a dissatisfied face. Junior Brother, You can't blame the chief pagoda master for always saying that you don't do your job properly. You asked for it. Let me tell you, if you continue to be like this, I'm afraid that the entire Central Divine Kingdom will talk about you behind your back. Gongsun Bei tried his best to persuade him. It's none of your business. Young Master Hao rolled his eyes and waved his hand impatiently. Don't be long-winded. If you have something to say, just say it. A row of black lines appeared on Gongsun Bei's forehead, and the veins on his forehead bulged. Can't you see that I'm concerned? My good intentions were taken as ill intentions. Some time ago, we found a cluster of 7th-grade alchemy fire in Qinghai. Gongsun Bei said. As expected, Qin Feiyang's heart skipped a beat. But young Master Hao looked unhappy and said, It's just a cluster of 7th-grade alchemy fire. You can just bring it back. Why do you have to call me back? Wang Yuer also looked suspicious. The 7th-grade alchemy fire was no less than a big treasure in Qin Feiyang's eyes. But it was nothing in the eyes of young Master Hao and Wang Yuer. Gongsun Bei said, The chief pagoda master wants the 3 of you to go to Qinghai and bring back the alchemy fire. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. When Gongsun Bei said that there was a 7th-grade alchemy fire, he expected this result. But he didn't expect that young Master Hao and Wang Yuer would also go. If he were to go alone, he would be able to take the alchemy fire for himself with a few simple tricks. But now that young Master Hao and Wang Yu were with him, it was not so easy. At the same time, hearing Gongsun Bei's words, young Master Hao frowned and shook his head. I'm not interested. I'm not going. Gongsun Bei said, This is the chief pagoda master's order. You can't refuse. Fuck. I'm not your pet. Why should I listen to you? Gongsun Bei said angrily. In his opinion, this was simply a waste of time. Wang Yuer glanced at Qin Feiyang and snorted coldly. I'm not interested either, especially if I'm going with someone. That's for the best. Because I like to be alone, and I don't like to bring a burden. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Who are you calling a burden? Wang Yuer immediately gnashed her teeth. I'm not talking about you. Why are you so agitated? Qin Feiyang shrugged and then said jokingly, Or do you admit that you're a burden? Bastard. I'll tear you apart. Wang Yuer couldn't argue and attacked. She bared her white teeth and pounced on Qin Feiyang fiercely. Gongsun Bei, who was next to them, felt a headache when he saw this scene. Enough. Stop fooling around. Seeing that Wang Yuer was about to pounce on Qin Feiyang, Gongsun Bei released his energy and imprisoned both Mr. Hao and Mr. Hao. It's indeed quite easy for us divine envoys to bring back that cluster of elixir fire. And I also think that it's unnecessary to let you go to Qinghai. But the Chief Tower Master said that this is a good opportunity for you to gain experience. Gongsun Bei said, Who cares? Mr. Hao pouted. Gongsun Bei was extremely helpless. He said, The Chief Tower Master has already decided. You have to go whether you want to or not. You'll leave tomorrow morning. Then, he withdrew his energy. Humph. Mr. Hao snorted and turned around to enter his tower without looking back. Wang Yuer glanced coldly at Qin Feiyang and also turned around to leave. Sigh. These two are really troublesome. Gongsun Bei sighed helplessly. Then, he looked at Qin Feiyang and said, Do you know the real reason why the Chief Tower Master wants you to go to Qinghai? The real reason? Qin Feiyang was stunned. After thinking for a while, he said, For Mr. Hao.
Yes.
Junior brother is different from others since he was born. He has never experienced any setbacks, which makes the Chief Tower Master very worried. Because if this goes on, his future will be delayed and his talent will be wasted. So, the Chief Tower Master wants him to go out and see the cruelty of the world. He wants him to experience some hardships and tribulations so that he will understand that he can't always rely on others. He has to rely on himself for everything. But the Chief Tower Master is worried. So he wants you to go with Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer has the strength, and you have the brains. You can do your best to protect junior brother. Of course, it's also a chance for you and Wang Yuer to cultivate your relationship. Gongsun Bei smiled ambiguously. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. It was impossible for him and Wang Yuer. What was there to cultivate? Have you asked Elder Wang and Wang Yuer's parents about this? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course, it's such an important matter. We have to discuss it with them in advance. And they are very satisfied with you. They hope that you and Wang Yu can be together. Gong Sun Bei smiled. I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint their good intentions. Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. He and Wang Yu were not from the same world, so it was impossible for them to be together. Besides, Gong Sun Bei added with a serious face, you have to remember what I'm going to say next. No matter what difficulties you encounter after you leave Divine City, we won't help you in any way. Qin Feiyang was shocked. It seemed that the Chief Tower Master was serious this time to make young Master Hao change his mind. What about the coordinates of the alchemy fire? Qin Feiyang asked. I won't tell you. You have to find it yourself. But don't worry. As long as you enter Qinghai, it won't be difficult to find the location of the alchemy fire. But you have to hurry, because there should be only half a month before the birth of the alchemy fire, Gong Sun Bei said. Okay. Qin Feiyang nodded. Gong Sun Bei patted Qin Feiyang's shoulder and said with a smile, then I'll leave this matter to you. Bring junior brother back alive. I'll try my best. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay, you get ready. I'll go and report. After Gong Sun Bei finished speaking, he opened the portal and left. It's really troublesome. When the portal dissipated, Qin Feiyang's eyes suddenly had a trace of anger. Immediately, he turned and entered the attic, took out the image crystal, and Wu Yang's shadow quickly condensed. Qin Feiyang said, give me the location and coordinates of the alchemy fire. Wu Yang was stunned and said respectfully, now we only know that the alchemy fire has appeared in Qinghai, and the location and coordinates are still in the process of finding out. How long do you need to find out? Qin Feiyang frowned. I don't know. Wu Yang shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered and said, once you find out the coordinates, tell me immediately. Okay. Wu Yang nodded and asked, is there anything else? Nothing. Qin Feiyang shook his head. After turning off the image crystal, Qin Feiyang sat on the chair, lowered his head and muttered, his eyes flickering. 7th grade alchemy fire. I'm determined to get it. A moment later, he clenched his hands and muttered to himself, a firm light flashing in his eyes. Time flew. Early the next morning, Qin Feiyang walked out of the attic. Soon, Wang Yu and young Master Hao also walked out. Although they didn't want to go, the Chief Pagoda Master had already made up his mind and could only obey. The three of them gathered together. Wang Yu didn't say anything and directly declared her sovereignty, saying, along the way, you must listen to me. On what basis? Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Wang Yu said coldly, because I'm stronger than you. If you're not convinced, you can come and fight. Okay, I'll listen to you. Qin Feiyang was helpless. He was a 1-star battle saint. Wasn't he looking for trouble if he fought with a 9-star battle saint? Then let's go. Wang Yu waved her hand and opened a portal. The three of them walked in one after another. Qilin tribe. Chief. The Chief Pagoda's spy reported that Ancestor Mu is going to Qinghai. In a hall, an old man in black stood in front of the chief of the Qilin tribe and said respectfully. The chief of the Qilin tribe was stunned and frowned. Why is he going to Qinghai? The old man in black said, it's said that the Chief Pagoda Master asked him to bring back the alchemy fire. That's not right. Usually, the Chief Pagoda's divine envoy will come out in such a situation. The chief of the Qilin tribe was suspicious. The old man in black said, it seems that he wants to train him. The Chief Pagoda Master didn't even give them the coordinates and asked them to find it themselves. The chief of the Qilin tribe's eyes lit up and said, doesn't that mean that this is a great opportunity to kill him? Yes, but also no. Because Wang Yu and young Master Hao are going with him. The old man in black said, what's the matter? Can't we find a chance to avoid them? In short, we can't let Ancestor Mu come back alive this time. I'll leave this matter to you. Bring back the alchemy fire as well. The chief of the Qilin tribe said with a cold smile on his face. Okay. The old man in black nodded, then bowed and left. A mysterious tribe. The chief of the divine python tribe was half lying on the chair. He narrowed his eyes as if he was thinking about something. The high priestess stood behind him and gently massaged his shoulders. A moment later, The chief of the divine python tribe suddenly opened his eyes and sat up straight. He said, I have a feeling that we can't let Ancestor Mu live. The high priestess's delicate body stiffened. She shook her head and said, No, if the assassination fails, it'll be equivalent to us not fighting and not confessing. Besides, judging from Ancestor Mu's attitude that day, he definitely doesn't know the cause of Big Brother's death. I understand, but I can't feel at ease if Ancestor Mu doesn't die. The chief of the divine python tribe said in distress, You're a typical thief with a guilty conscience. The high priestess glared at him helplessly. After pondering for a moment, she said, How about this? Isn't he going to Qinghai? We'll let Elder Qin follow him first. If there's a chance to kill him in one strike, we'll kill him. If there's no chance, we'll give up decisively. The chief of the divine python tribe's eyes lit up. He said happily, That's a good idea. I'll go find Elder Qin immediately. With that, he got up and left in a hurry. If you knew this would happen, why did you do it in the first place? Chapter 980. Qinghai City. This city was located at the western border of the Central Divine Kingdom, which was very far away from the Divine City. The area of Qinghai City was only about 5 or 6 miles. Compared to the Divine City, it was like heaven and earth. Moreover, Qinghai City had been built for less than 1,000 years. However, such a city was quite prosperous. Because Qinghai City was the only way to Qinghai, and it was only dozens of miles away from Qinghai. Many people who went to Qinghai to explore and search for treasures would come here to replenish their supplies and rest. Swish! At this moment, in the sky above a forest outside the city, 3 figures appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang and the other 2. Qin Feiyang glanced down, looked up at the city not far away, and asked suspiciously, Where is this? I don't know either. Young Master Hao shook his head. Although he was born in the Central Divine Kingdom, he had always been in the Divine City, so he was even more unfamiliar with the outside world than Qin Feiyang. Wang Yuer said, This is Qinghai City, the only city near Qinghai. If you want to buy anything, hurry up and buy it. Young Master Hao asked curiously, Sister, have you been here before? No. Wang Yuer shook her head. Then how do you know? Young Master Hao was suspicious. Nonsense. Of course I asked around. Wang Yuer glared at him angrily. In fact, last night, she had deliberately asked someone about the details of Qinghai City. Therefore, although she had never been here before, she knew a little about Qinghai City. Young Master Hao smiled embarrassedly. This woman is quite attentive. Qin Feiyang glanced at Wang Yuer and asked, Then should we change our faces and hide our identities? No need. Qinghai City is millions of miles away from the Divine City. Basically, no one here has been to the Divine City, so no one will know us. Wang Yuer said, No way. I'm so famous, but they don't know me. Young Master Hao was surprised. Narcissist. Wang Yuer couldn't help but roll her eyes and said, Although others don't know you, the Pavilion Master and the City Lord of Qinghai City know you. Who? Young Master Hao was stunned and asked. Wang Yuer said, Fu Xiong, Shen Feiyun. So it's them. Young Master Hao was enlightened. Let's go. Restrain your auras and don't attract too much attention. After all, we're here to train. The fewer people who know, the better. Wang Yuer said indifferently and flew towards Qinghai City without looking back. Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao followed behind her. Qin Feiyang whispered, Who are Fu Xiong and Shen Feiyun? Young Master Hao chuckled. Speaking of which, you and Fu Xiong have some history. Origin? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Young Master Hao asked, Do you remember Fu Anshan? Of course I remember. Qin Feiyang said. Young Master Hao smiled. Fu Xiong is Fu Anshan's son. Ugh. Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Then, he smiled bitterly. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. As for Shen Feiyun, this person was once a prominent figure in Divine City. He was even as famous as Gongsun Bei. Unfortunately, in the end, when he spoke up to hear, young Master Hao paused as if he was hiding something that was difficult to say. As famous as Gongsun Bei, Qin Feiyang was shocked. who didn't know that Gongsun Bei was not only the disciple of the chief tower master, but also his trusted aide. It could be said that his status in Forgotten Continent was definitely not lower than the Holy Tower Master and the Saint Peak Master, and a person who could be compared to Gongsun Bei should at least be an overlord. How could he have fallen to such a state? Not long later, the three of them landed in front of the city gate. There were 4 guards guarding the city gate. Their cultivation was between 1-star War Master and 3-star War Master. Wow, look! A great beauty has come. When they saw Wang Yuer, the eyes of the 4 guards immediately lit up as they stood at the city gate. When Qin Feiyang and the other 2 approached, the leader of the guards shouted, "Stop!" The 3 of them were slightly stunned. The leader of the guards shouted, "Who are you? What is your purpose in coming to Qinghai City?" The people coming and going all stopped in their tracks and looked at the 3 of them suspiciously. Wang Yuer raised her eyebrows and said patiently, "Big brothers, we are explorers going to Qinghai City." "Really? But no matter how we look at it, you don't look like good people." The guard glanced at Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao, then looked straight at Wang Yuer. The other 3 guards were the same. Looking at the eyes of the 4, Qin Feiyang immediately understood that there was an ulterior motive, but he didn't move, because he wanted to see how Wang Yuer was going to deal with it. Wang Yuer had seen countless people and had teased countless men. Of course, she could see through the thoughts of the 4 at a glance. A cold light flashed in her eyes as she said, "Then may I ask, how can we prove that we are not bad people?" There was a trace of coldness in her tone. "Search. We want to see if you have any weapons on you. Don't try to resist. Because in Qinghai City, no matter how high your cultivation is or how strong you are, you have to follow the rules here." The leader of the guards said very seriously, but his eyes were always glancing at Wang Yuer's chest. "You're courting death." Young Master Hao clenched his hands and said in a deep voice, "What if we don't follow the rules?" "Don't follow the rules?" The 4 guards looked at each other and smiled. The leader's eyes flashed, and he said, "If you don't follow the rules, you'll die, even if you're the king of heaven." Arrogant. Young Master Hao was furious. Qin Feiyang grabbed him and said with a smile, "Don't be anxious. We'll make a move when Wang Yuer can't handle it." Young Master Hao was stunned, and his eyes immediately became strange. He said through voice transmission, "Brother, she's your fiancée now. Are you going to watch her being teased by other men in public?" Qin Feiyang pursed his lips. "Fiancé?" He didn't have such luck. "You 2 bastards, are you still men?" At the same time, seeing Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer remain indifferent, Wang Yuer's heart also surged with anger. "Didn't you tell us to listen to you? Without your permission, we wouldn't dare to move." "Brother Hao, don't you think so?" Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Young Master Hao's face darkened, and he said angrily, "Brother, you're being immoral. It's fine if you want to fight with her, but why drag me into it? Are you stupid? Can't you see that I'm fighting for the right to speak for us? You can't expect us 2 men to listen to a woman, can you?" Qin Feiyang said. "I see." Young Master Hao came to a realization, then looked at Wang Yuer and said timidly through voice transmission, "Sister, Brother Mu is right. Without your permission, we wouldn't dare to be presumptuous." Wang Yuer's face turned pale. She was not a fool, and she could naturally see that the 2 were doing it on purpose. At the same time, seeing that Wang Yuer didn't say anything, the 4 guards thought that Wang Yuer acquiesced to their search, so they smiled at each other and went forward to surround Wang Yuer. The leader of the guards said with a smile, "Little girl, don't be nervous. We're just searching you. We won't take advantage of you." Yes, yes, yes. It's just a search." The other 3 guards nodded in agreement, but their eyes were extremely wretched. Then, the 4 of them raised their arms one after another and reached for Wang Yuer. "You really don't know what's good for you," Wang Yuer muttered, her eyes cold and piercing. But suddenly, a sly look flashed in her eyes, and she said to Qin Feiyang through voice transmission, "Do you want me to say it before you're willing to move? Fine. Now I order you to cripple the 4 of them." "Cripple?" Young Master Hao was stunned and said to himself, "Brother, what should we do now?" "Pretend you didn't hear it," Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Young Master Hao was stunned and shook his head with a bitter smile. These two were indeed a pair of enemies. Seeing that the two of them were still indifferent, Wang Yuer's temper couldn't help but flare up. You win. She turned around and glared at the two of them fiercely, then glanced at the four guards, killing intent bursting out of her eyes. The four guards couldn't help but tremble. What are you doing? However, at this time, a displeased shout was heard. Oh no! The four guards trembled again and hurriedly turned to look at the street inside the city gate with incomparably respectful expressions. The crowd of onlookers was the same, as if some big shot had arrived. Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao looked at each other and also looked up. Their gazes passed through the crowd and finally landed on a certain place on the street inside the city. At that place, a young man was walking over with large strides, surrounded by a group of guards. The young man was wearing a gorgeous purple robe and was about 1.8 meters tall. There was an exquisite jade pendant on his waist, and he looked dignified and arrogant. The group of guards behind him were dressed similar to the four guards guarding the city. Obviously, they were all from the city lord's mansion. However, their auras were much stronger than the four people guarding the city. The purple-clothed young man was like a moon surrounded by stars, looking down on the crowd. Greetings, young Master Long. As soon as the purple-clothed young man came out, the people gathered in front of the city gate bowed to him. Yes. Young Master Long nodded, his arrogant expression slightly cold, but when he saw Wang Yuer, his eyes flashed with surprise. What's going on? He looked at the four city guards and frowned. The leader of the guards hurriedly said, Young Master Long, it's like this, however. Before he could speak, Wang Yuer's eyes flashed, and she ran to young Master Long in a panic, saying, Young Master, you have to uphold justice for this little girl. As she spoke, she used her charm technique slightly. Young Master Long was immediately enchanted. His eyes filled with admiration, and then patted his chest proudly. Don't be afraid with me here. No one dares to bully you. Thank you, young master. Wang Yuer looked at him gratefully. Her charming eyes were like silk, seducing one's soul. Little demoness. Qin Feiyang cursed. Get used to it. Young Master Hao patted his shoulder and sighed. He had lived with Wang Yuer since he was young, so he had a certain immunity to Wang Yuer's charm technique. But the others couldn't. At this moment, all the men present looked at Wang Yuer as if their souls had left their bodies. That young Master Long was even more obsessed with the charm technique, unable to extricate himself. At the same time, Wang Yuer glanced at everyone, and finally her gaze fell on Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao. Her gaze was somewhat thought-provoking. Looking at Wang Yuer's gaze, young Master Hao inexplicably felt flustered and transmitted his voice. Brother Mu, I have an ominous premonition. Me too, Qin Feiyang muttered. Both of them secretly became vigilant. Because this Wang Yuer could do anything. Wang Yuer suddenly retracted her gaze and looked at young Master Long with a charming smile. Young Master, didn't you want to uphold justice for me? Why aren't you saying anything? Yes, yes, yes. Young Master Long suddenly came back to his senses, and then nodded repeatedly, looking at the four guards. He said angrily, You four men actually bullied a woman in broad daylight. This is too much. Young Master, this is a misunderstanding. The four of them trembled physically and mentally, and hurriedly knelt on the ground. Misunderstanding? Do you think I don't know what you're thinking? My city lord mansion sent you here to guard the city gate and maintain order, not to use your authority to bully people. Young Master Long roared. We were wrong. Young Master, please spare us. The four of them kept kowtowing, extremely terrified. I also want to spare you, but with so many people watching, if I do so, won't people say that I'm bending the law for personal gain? Don't blame me. This is what you asked for. Young Master Long shook his head and sighed and shouted, Men, execute them on the spot. Yes. One of the guards behind him replied respectfully. Then, he took a step forward and without saying anything, he killed the four guards. So ruthless? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Young Master Hao secretly said, It's not that he's ruthless, it's sister's charming technique. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was surprised. You still don't understand? Sister's charming technique, when used to a certain extent, can control a person's mind, and you have to do whatever she wants you to do. And that day at Longfeng Pavilion, you were lucky. Because you're about to become my father's disciple, she has some concerns, so she didn't dare to do that. Young Master Hao secretly said. When Qin Feiyang heard this, he couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Wang Yuer's charming technique was even more terrifying than he had imagined. It seemed that in the future, he had to stay away from this woman, lest he suddenly be controlled. One had to know. He was a person with secrets all over his body. Once controlled, the consequences would be unimaginable. Young Master Long looked at Wang Yuer and said with a flattering smile, "Miss, are you satisfied now?" "Thank you, young master," Wang Yuer said weakly, then suddenly pointed at Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao and said, "And them? They followed me all the way. They definitely have ulterior motives." "What the hell?" Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Ulterior motives? What kind of joke was this? If it was another woman, it might be possible. But for this little demoness, they only wanted to stay as far away from her as possible. How could they possibly have ulterior motives towards her? However, no one else knew about this. Everyone looked at the two of them in unison, their eyes filled with anger. As for that young Master Long, his eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness. "She's forcing us to make a move." Young Master Hao sighed. Qin Feiyang also had a helpless look on his face. A single sentence was enough to make him and young Master Hao public enemies. This woman was more than terrifying. She was simply impossible to deal with. Suddenly, killing intent flashed in young Master Long's eyes, and he said without turning his head, "Miss, tell me, how should we deal with them?" "It's up to you," Wang Yuer said weakly. Young Master Long laughed coldly and waved his hand. "Break their legs for this young master." Immediately, the group of guards behind him swarmed forward with cruel smiles on their faces. There were more than a dozen of them, and their cultivations ranged from 3 to 5-star War Master. "Sis, isn't this too much?" Young Master Hao sent a sound transmission, sweeping his gaze across the guards, his brows tightly knitted. "Humph, you asked for it." Chapter 981. More than a dozen guards looked ferocious. Wang Yuer revealed 2 sweet dimples, looking extremely charming. She was a typical little witch. Young Master Long gritted his teeth as if he had a feud with Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer. Seeing this situation, the surrounding crowd kept retreating, afraid that they would be implicated. The atmosphere at the scene was extremely tense. Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer looked at each other and couldn't help but raise their eyebrows. Young Master Hao looked at those guards and said, "Let me tell you, you'd better not provoke me. You still dare to be arrogant when you're about to die?" Young Master Long looked surprised and then said to those guards, "Be gentle. Don't kill them. I want to have fun today." "Okay." More than a dozen guards nodded, their faces full of mockery and ridicule. There are so many people who want to die. Young Master Hao's eyes turned cold, and his Saint Aura roared in all directions. Those dozen guards were immediately imprisoned on the spot. He is actually a battle saint. Young Master Long was shocked. Under young Master Hao's Saint Aura, those guards felt as if they were in the abyss, and their bodies turned cold. I said, "Don't provoke me." Young Master Hao roared, and his Saint Aura suddenly surged. More than a dozen guards exploded on the spot, and blood splattered in the sky. Everyone's faces turned pale with fright. Wang Yuer was also shocked. Obviously, she didn't expect young Master Hao to kill them directly. Only Qin Feiyang looked as if nothing had happened. Although he hadn't known young Master Hao for long, he had already known young Master Hao's character. Don't be fooled by young Master Hao's usual sloppy appearance. In fact, there was an inviolable arrogance in his bones. Therefore, when dealing with this person, one had to use the right method, or one would get into trouble. And this young Master Long, relying on the power behind him, repeatedly provoked him. As the son of the chief tower master, he definitely couldn't tolerate it. "How dare you? How dare you kill my guards? Do you know who I am? Do you know how big a mistake you have made?" Young Master Long didn't realize that he had hit an iron plate this time. After coming back to his senses, he immediately shouted at young Master Hao in a stern voice. "You're still excited?" Young Master Hao raised his eyebrows, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and laughed. "You are the first one who dares to talk to me like this. I have to admire your courage. Who do you think you are?" Young Master Long was not to be outdone. Qin Feiyang frowned. Young Master Hao had already displayed his strength. Yet this person still dared to continue challenging him? It seemed like this young Master Long really had someone backing him up. "Who am I?" In the meantime, young Master Hao was stunned. As the son of the dignified Chief Tower Master, when had he ever been humiliated like this? Was this person tired of living? Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as he landed in front of young Master Long. "What do you want to do?" This sudden action caused young Master Long to panic a little. "What are you trying to do? What do you think?" Young Master Hao laughed and raised his hand to slap young Master Long's face. Furthermore, he used half of his strength. But even if it was only half of his strength, it was still not something that young Master Long could withstand, because young Master Long was only a battle emperor. There was no suspense. Accompanied by a miserable howl, young Master Long flew out like a meteorite, crashing into the city gate behind him, blood spurting out wildly. Half of his face instantly swelled up, and a blood-red palm print was extremely eye-catching. "You actually dare to hit me?" He laid on the ground and looked at young Master Hao in disbelief. "So what if I hit you? Let me tell you, to be able to let me slap you, that is the accumulated merit of your ancestors. You should go back and burn incense." Young Master Hao said in disdain. "How preposterous. I will definitely not let you off." Young Master Long spat out a mouthful of blood. He was angered by young Master Hao's words. Then, he got up in a sorry state and looked at Wang Yuer. "Miss, don't be afraid. Come with me first. I'll bring you to settle the score with them later." "You'd better pray for yourself." Wang Yuer chuckled, and then entered the city without looking back. "What do you mean?" Young Master Long was stunned. "Can't you tell? She's with us. She's just teasing you. You really took it seriously. You're really stupid." Young Master Hao shook his head and sneered. After saying that, he chased after Wang Yuer. "You're still too young." Qin Feiyang stepped forward and patted young Master Long's shoulder. He shook his head and smiled, then followed him into the city. "Teasing me?" Young Master Long was stunned, unable to regain his senses for a long time. A moment later, he looked at the crowd around him and asked, "Are they really together?" Everyone nodded. Young Master Long immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation and roared, "Then why didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't ask, and you didn't give us a chance to speak." Everyone muttered in their hearts. At the same time, they were very nervous. Qin Feiyang and the other two did not understand young Master Long, but they did. Not only did this person have a backer, he was also narrow-minded. No one dared to offend him. Young Master Long's hands were tightly clenched together as he looked at the backs of Qin Feiyang and the other two. The killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. "Just you wait. I will let you know the consequences of offending this young master," he muttered, then opened the teleportation gate and left. Only then did the people gathered here heave a sigh of relief. Following that, they began to discuss in low voices. To even dare to hit young Master Long, what kind of background did these three people have? Moreover, under the deliberate spread of the news, this matter spread from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100, and very quickly, everyone in Qinghai City knew about it. They were all shocked and in disbelief. On a bustling street, Qin Feiyang and the other two walked side by side. When the pedestrians who came and went saw them, they couldn't help but take a few more glances. It spread throughout Qinghai City so quickly. It really is as the saying goes, good things don't go out, but bad things travel 1,000 miles. Young Master Hao shook his head. Qin Feiyang laughed. This also means that young Master Long's background is not small. No matter how great his background is, can he compare to me? Young Master Hao disdained. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly. In this forgotten continent, other than the Mu family, There really wasn't any hedonistic son who dared to compare family background with young Master Hao. Young Master Hao looked at Wang Yu, who was walking in the middle, and frowned. Sis, you've caused enough trouble. Shouldn't you tell us now? Why did you bring us to Qinghai City? I'm causing trouble? Wang Yu laughed out of anger and said, From what you're saying, you're blaming me? Did I say that? Young Master Hao had an innocent look on his face. Humph. Don't think that I don't know what you guys want to do. Let me give you a piece of advice. All of you better behave yourselves. Wang Yu coldly snorted. Young Master Hao said powerlessly, Yes, 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 you're the best. You're the biggest. You can say it now. Didn't I say it already? We came to Qinghai City to prepare for going to Qinghai City. According to what I heard last night, Qinghai City is very big, and there are very few islands. Without an island, we won't be able to land. So for safety's sake, before we go, we must first buy a few water avoidance pearls. Wang Yu said. And Wang Yu's attentiveness once again made Qin Feiyang have a whole new level of respect for her. Indeed, water avoidance pearls were indispensable when going on an adventure in the sea, because there was a lot of water pressure in the deep sea. If one accidentally fell into the deep sea, it would be extremely dangerous. Everyone knew that. Not only were there powerful sea beasts lurking in the deep sea, but the water pressure would also affect one's strength and cause inconvenience. But it would be different with water avoidance pearls. The water avoidance pearls could isolate the water pressure, allowing one to be as relaxed in the deep sea as on land. Water avoidance pearls? Young Master Hao frowned and said, Then why didn't you say so earlier? The old man has a lot of them. I'll just go and ask him for a few. Wang Yu said, He won't give them to you. Why? Young Master Hao was suspicious. Don't you understand? This time, your father asked us to come to Qinghai City to train you. So not to mention your father, even if you go to Gongsun Bay or your friends, they won't give you water avoidance pearls. Wang Yu glared at him angrily. She had never seen such a stupid person who still didn't understand the situation. Is that so? Young Master Hao was stunned and looked at Qin Feiyang. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded with a wry smile. In fact, young Master Hao wasn't stupid, but he just didn't use the right path. And now it seemed that the Chief Tower Master's worries were reasonable. If he didn't train him, his future would be ruined. After all this time, I'm the one who implicated you? Young Master Hao looked at the two of them with a stunned expression. What do you think? Wang Yu rolled her eyes at young Master Hao, then stopped a passerby and asked, Brother, how do I get to the trading pavilion? It's 2 blocks ahead and around the corner. The passerby said in a hurry and ran away as if he was running for his life. The three of them looked at each other. Young Master Hao frowned and said, Why do I feel that in his eyes, we are a bit of a plague? Not a bit. We are. It seems that young Master Long is really not simple, Qin Feiyang said. So what? He'd better not provoke us again, or I'll send him to hell. Young Master Hao's eyes flashed coldly. A moment later, the three of them entered the trading pavilion. Compared to the trading pavilions in Divine City, the scale of the trading pavilions here was much smaller. The whole building only had 3 floors, and the decoration was very old. But after all, it was the only trading pavilion in the Qinghai region, so there were many people coming in and out. Greetings, Mississippi. Greetings, young masters. A woman in red came up and bowed to the three of them. Wang Yu said, Do you have a water-repelling pearl here? Yes. The woman in red nodded, not surprised at all, because most people came to the trading pavilion for the water-repelling pearl. Wang Yu was delighted and asked, How much is it? Miss, this is your first time here, right? We don't sell the water-repelling pearl. We only auction it. The highest bidder gets it, and we only auction 5 a day. The woman in red smiled. You're auctioning this thing? You're not too kind. You're clearly taking advantage of the situation. Young Master Hao said unhappily. Wang Yu also frowned and was a little dissatisfied. The water-repelling pearl was very precious and rare in the eyes of others, but for people like young Master Hao and Wang Yu, it couldn't be more ordinary. This was the difference in values between people of different levels. This is the rule set by the higher-ups. We can only follow it. Please understand. The woman in red smiled apologetically. People who stayed in the trading pavilion all year round were definitely better at reading people than others. From the conversation between young Master Hao and young Master Hao, she had already guessed that the three people in front of her must be extraordinary, so her attitude was more polite. It's okay. Wang Yu waved her hand and smiled. She asked, "Is there an auction today?" "Yes. It starts in an hour. If you're not in a hurry, you can stay and watch. Because when we auction the water-repelling pearl, we will also auction other rare treasures that may be helpful for your trip to Qinghai," the woman in red said. Wang Yu was moved. She nodded and smiled. "Then please arrange a private room for us." "Okay. Please follow me." After the woman in red finished speaking, she turned around and was about to lead the way. But at this moment, a group of people rushed into the trading pavilion aggressively. The leader was young Master Long. There were more than 20 people behind him. They were all middle-aged burly men. Their bodies were burly, and the aura they emitted was between 7 and 9 Star War Masters. Compared to the guards at the city gate before, their overall strength was on a higher level. Beside young Master Long, there was an old man in black. This person was skinny and had white hair. There was no aura on his body at all. He looked weak, but his old eyes were filled with strands of astonishing sharpness. "It's them." After young Master Long rushed into the trading pavilion, he glanced at the crowd. When he saw Qin Feiyong and the other two, he immediately grabbed the three of them and said angrily. Immediately, the 20 or so guards and the old man in black looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two. "They're really not afraid of death," young Master Hao muttered, a hint of killing intent flashing in the depths of his eyes. Young Master Long smiled contemptuously, looked at the three of them arrogantly and said, "Now, I'll give you a chance. Kneel down and kowtow to apologize." "Kowtow and apologize? Who gave you the guts to say such words to me?" Young Master Hao's face darkened. "Haha." Young Master Long laughed arrogantly and said, "Today, not only do you have to kowtow and apologize, you also have to hand her over to me. Smelly bitch, how dare you play with me? I'll let you know the consequences of offending me later." His eyes swept across Wang Yuer's chest and scrupulously, full of lust and wickedness. Wang Yuer frowned and said indifferently, "You will pay the price for this." "Haha, this is my territory. What do you dare to do to me? You're not going to kneel, are you? All right, cripple them for me." Young Master Long roared, and the 20 or so guards immediately rushed towards Qin Feiyong and the other two. "Stop." But at this time, the woman in red stood up, looked at young Master Long, and said in a deep voice, "Young Master Long, don't forget that this is the trading pavilion. If you have any personal grudges, please wait until they leave the trading pavilion." "Is the trading pavilion that great? Get the hell out of my way, or I'll beat you up too." Young Master Long shouted arrogantly. "How dare you?" The woman in red's face sank. "Pa." However, before she could finish her sentence, young Master Long took a step forward and slapped the woman in red's face. "You." The woman in red was stunned. Although she was only a staff member of the trading pavilion and couldn't be compared to young Master Long, in Qinghai City, no one had ever dared to cause trouble in the trading pavilion, not to mention the people in the trading pavilion. Young Master Long waved his hand and sneered, "Bitch, I'll ask you one more time. Are you going to get out of my way or not? They are guests of my trading pavilion. Don't even think about touching them. I will immediately report this matter to the pavilion master and ask him to make a decision." The woman in red took out an image crystal. "You're courting death." Young Master Long was furious. He slapped away the image crystal of the woman in red, and then slapped her again. The woman in red's beautiful face turned pale. Young Master Long was a famous playboy in Qinghai City, so she understood him. Although he was usually very arrogant, he was still honest every time he came to the trading pavilion. But he didn't expect him to be so crazy today. "You've gone too far." Chapter 982. Young Master Long raised his eyebrows, looked at Qin Feiyong's hand, and laughed. "Do you want to be the hero to save the beauty?" His smile was somewhat frightening. The woman in red cursed in her heart and hurriedly sent a sound transmission to Qin Feiyong. "Young Master, quickly stop. He is not someone you can provoke." Qin Feiyong laughed faintly, This matter was originally caused by us. Speaking of which, we have implicated you. So let me end it. He did not send a sound transmission. The woman in red was stunned. This kind of confident tone and arrogant demeanor was not something an adventurer should have. Could it be that these three people had a great background? Haha, however. Young Master Long seemed to have heard the funniest joke in the world as he raised his head and laughed loudly. Qin Feiyang chuckled. Is it that funny? If it's not funny, would this young master laugh? I think you're just here to be funny. End it? How do you want to end it? Kill me? Do you have the guts? Let me tell you, as long as I lose a single strand of hair here, you can forget about leaving this Qinghai city. Haha. After young Master Long finished speaking, he laughed out loud again, his eyes filled with contempt. Is that so? The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth lifted, his 5 fingers slightly exerted force, and a kacha sound immediately resounded. He crushed young Master Long's wrist. Ah, young Master Long, who was laughing, immediately let out a pig-like howl. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and his face instantly turned pale. Quickly save the young master. The 20-odd guards' expressions suddenly changed as they rushed towards Qin Feiyang. Scram! Qin Feiyang roared, his holy might roared, and his black hair fluttered in the wind. In an instant, as if struck by lightning, those guards were all sent flying, spitting out blood as they screamed miserably. He is also a war saint. The onlookers turned pale with fright. The black-clothed old man, who had been silent the entire time, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Boom! Suddenly, a terrifying pressure rushed out from the black-clothed old man's body. This was also the holy might, and it was even stronger than Qin Feiyang, 2-star war saint. He glanced at Wang Yu and young Master Hao, then looked at Qin Feiyang and said solemnly, Qinghai City is not a place where you can behave atrociously. As soon as he finished, the black-clothed old man took a step forward. He raised his aged hand and went straight for Qin Feiyang's chest. Qin Feiyang looked at the black-clothed old man, with a hint of disdain in his eyes. Boom! And just as the black-clothed old master holy might, the black-clothed old man was immediately imprisoned, unable to move at all. This holy might, everyone's to master, their eyes. She was also a venerable, his, and his cultivation his. Wang Yu had concealed her aura, so everyone had always thought that she was just a pretty but useless face. But he never expected that she was the real big BS. Here came the problem. Who was to be? To these three? The black-clothed old man's eyes were gloomy. He had obviously realized that he had hit an iron plate this time, but he wasn't nervous at all. The 3 of you, we are from the City Lord's mansion, and this young Master Long is the only son of the City Lord. So before you make a move, you'd better think carefully. The black-clothed old man said. The threat in his words was not concealed at all. The City Lord's son? Young Master Hao was stunned and frowned. You mean, he is Shun Feiyun's son? How dare you? How can you call the City Lord's name directly? The black-clothed old man scolded. Young Master Hao was too lazy to pay attention to him. He looked at young Master Long, shook his head and sighed. Back then, Shun Feiyun was considered a figure in the Divine City, but I didn't expect him to teach such a scum son. The black-clothed old man was dumbfounded. Although Shun Feiyun was the City Lord of Qinghai City, he rarely appeared in front of others. As for his past deeds, there were even fewer people who knew about them. But this person actually knew. Could it be that these 3 people were from the Divine City? I want to see who has the guts to talk about me behind my back. Suddenly, a hoarse voice sounded. Following closely, a middle-aged man, holding a wine pot, staggered into the trading pavilion. This person looked to be in his 40s, with a striking scar at the corner of his eye. His face was full of stubble, his clothes were untidy, his hair was messy, and his body reeked of alcohol, like a sloppy drunkard. Greetings, City Lord. When the surrounding crowd saw this person, they all bowed. City Lord? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This drunkard was Shun Feiyun? This was too different from the Shun Feiyun he imagined. One had to know. This Shun Feiyun was once in existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Gongsun Bei. Even if he came to Qinghai City, he wouldn't be in such dire straits. At the same time, young Master Hao and Wang Yu looked at Shun Feiyun, their brows tightly knitted together. Obviously, Shin Feiyun's current appearance surprised them. "Father, save me." Young Master Long seemed to have seen his savior and hurriedly called out. Shin Feiyun glanced at him indifferently, then looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two. His eyes were also hazy with drunkenness. But when he saw the appearance of young Master Hao and Wang Yu, he suddenly quivered, and his drunkenness instantly disappeared. He stared at the two of them, his seemingly pale and powerless eyes filled with disbelief. What's going on? Everyone looked at each other. They had thought that Shin Feiyun would definitely fly into a rage when he saw his son being beaten in public, but they didn't expect him to reveal such an expression. Wang Yu frowned and sent a sound transmission. "Elder brother Shun, we are here to gain experience. Don't reveal our identities for the time being." Experience? Shin Feiyun was stunned. What was going on? Why would a young miss who was admired by countless people, a young master who lived like a prince, suddenly come out to gain experience and even come to Qinghai City? Seeing this, young Master Long was extremely anxious and said angrily, "Father, what are you doing? Quickly teach them a lesson." "Bastard!" Shun Feiyun was furious and stepped forward to slap young Master Long's face. Everyone was stunned. What the hell was going on? It was fine if he didn't stand up for young Master Long, but why did he have to teach young Master Long a lesson? "Looks like they really are big shots from the Divine City," the old man in black muttered, his heart filled with lingering fear. Even the city lord was so fearful, one could imagine how great the background of these three young people was. Fortunately, the city lord had arrived in time. Otherwise, this matter would have blown up. And without any suspense, young Master Long was also stunned by this slap. When he came back to his senses, other than disbelief, he still had a questioning look on his face. But Shin Feiyun ignored him, looked at Wang Yu and said, "Can you give me some face and let my son go this time? I can let him go, but remember, discipline him more in the future. After all, not everyone will give you this face." After young Master Hao finished speaking, he nodded to Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong frowned. To be honest, he already had the intention to kill young Master Long. However, since young Master Hao had already promised Shin Feiyun, he couldn't refute young Master Hao's face, and finally let young Master Long go. "Father, what's wrong with you?" Young Master Long ran to Shun Feiyun's side as if he was running for his life, and asked suspiciously, "Shut up." Shun Feiyun shouted coldly. Then, he looked at young Master Hao and said, "When I go back, I will teach him a lesson, but you guys better not cause trouble in Qinghai City." Young Master Hao said indifferently, "Do we look like people who would take the initiative to cause trouble?" "It's best if that's the case." Shin Feiyun looked at the three of them with deep meaning, and then did not say another word, and turned to leave with young Master Long and the others. What's going on? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Shin Feiyun obviously knew the identity of young Master Hao and Wang Yu, but why was his attitude so cold? He could even faintly catch a trace of disgust in Shun Feiyun's eyes. At the same time, the surrounding crowd looked at each other in dismay. They originally thought that there would be a good show to watch, but who would have thought that it would end just like that? And when they looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two again, their eyes were filled with reverence. The red-clothed lady who received Qin Feiyong and the other two was the same. She had guessed that the three of them might have extraordinary origins, but she didn't expect that even the city lord would be so polite to them. "Who?" The red-clothed lady took a deep breath and calmed the emotions in her heart. Then, she looked at Qin Feiyong and the other two and bowed. "I'm sorry, I frightened you guys." Wang Yu said, "We were the ones who caused you to be slapped by him. We should be the ones apologizing. Mrs. Too polite. Anyone who comes to the trading pavilion is an honored guest of our trading pavilion. Of course, we have to do our best to protect the safety of our guests." The red-clothed lady laughed. Qin Feiyong and the other two were surprised. They didn't expect the trading pavilion of Qinghai City to be so protective of their guests. If it was the trading pavilion of the Divine City, The people of the trading pavilion would probably only stand behind young Master Long. Fu Anshan was the best example. Back then, Qin Feiyong and the others entered the trading pavilion. Later, Guoming brought people to cause trouble. In the end, Fu Anshan helped the people of the Scorpion tribe to bully them. "Let's go. I'll take you to the VIP room," the red-clothed lady said. "Thank you." Wang Yuer nodded and smiled. Thus, the three of them walked to the second floor under the guidance of the red-clothed lady. "Brother Hao, didn't you say that the pavilion master of Qinghai City's trading pavilion, Fu Xiong, is Fu Anshan's son?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "That's right." Young Master Hao nodded and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" Qin Feiyong said, "It's nothing. I just feel that Fu Xiong's management is pretty good." There was an old saying that went like this: like father, like son. Before coming to the trading pavilion, he thought that Fu Xiong was the same as Fu Anshan, a petty person who only cared about benefits. But now, it seemed that wasn't the case. Because the quality of the staff was related to the person in charge. The better the quality of the person in charge, the better the quality of the staff. Although he hadn't seen Fu Xiong with his own eyes, from the red-clothed lady's character, it wasn't difficult to see that Fu Xiong should be a good person. Therefore, it was this contrast that made Qin Feiyong unable to adapt for a while. Of course. Chapter 983. City Lord's Mansion. In a certain hall, Shun Feiyun was leaning against a chair, still holding a wine pot in his hand. The old man in black stood respectfully at the side. As for young Master Long, he sat opposite Shun Feiyun with his legs crossed. He looked at his father with a trace of disgust. A moment passed. The old man in black couldn't help but ask, "City Lord, who exactly are they?" Shin Feiyun remained silent. Another moment passed. He raised his head and looked at young Master Long and said, "Their identities are not simple. Don't provoke them anymore." "Provoke?" Young Master Long raised his eyebrows and said angrily, "Are you blind? Can't you see that they provoked me first?" "Impudent. Who are you talking to?" Shin Feiyun was furious. "I'm talking to an alcoholic." "No, calling you an alcoholic is too flattering. Do you know how many people are talking about you behind your back? You're a good-for-nothing. I feel embarrassed to have a father like you. Do you know that?" Young Master Long slapped his face and said in disgust, "Bastard." Shin Feiyun was unable to restrain his anger and went forward to slap him. Young Master Long was immediately sent flying, crashing into a stone pillar behind him, blood gushing out of his mouth. However, he was not afraid at all. He stood up and shouted, "Hit me, continue. Other than hitting me, what else can you do? If you have the ability, then beat me to death today." "Do you think I don't dare?" Shun Feiyun was furious and walked towards young Master Long angrily. Seeing that the situation was not good, the old man in black hurriedly went forward and grabbed Shin Feiyun, saying, "Lord, even a vicious tiger will not eat its cubs. Calm down." Young Master Long said, "Uncle Nya, let him go. Anyway, I don't want to live anymore, so I might as well let him beat me to death. He can only find a sense of accomplishment on me." "Young Master, stop talking." "My lord, please calm down. We're all family. Why do you have to make such a fuss?" The old man in black tried his best to persuade him. "Family?" Young Master Long sneered and said, "Seeing me being beaten up, but not even daring to let out a fart, is this still a family? I think they're worse than outsiders." "What do you know? Do you know who they are?" Shin Feiyun shouted. "I don't know who they are, but I know that I have a cowardly and incompetent father." Young Master Long sneered, "Bastard." The furious Shun Feiyun blasted the black-clothed old man away with a palm strike and slapped young Master Long's face. "I'll tell you who they are now. The person who killed your guards at the city gate is the son of the chief tower master, young Master Hao. That woman is Wang Su's granddaughter and the daughter of the Saint Peak Master and the Sanctum Master. As for the person who crushed your wrist, he is called Ancestor Mu. He is the direct disciple of the chief pagoda master. He is also engaged to Wang Su's granddaughter. He and young Master Hao are like brothers. Tell me now, how can I help you?" Chief Pagoda Master shouted. "What? He actually has such a great background. The black-clothed old man was dumbfounded when he heard this. Young Master Long was also dumbstruck. Who would have thought that the origins of these three people would be so terrifying? The son of the chief Tower Master. The Tower Master's personal disciple. She was the daughter of the Saint Peak Master and the Saint Tower Master. Any one of these identities was enough to kill him in seconds. I told you not to cause trouble, but you didn't listen. Now, you've hit an iron plate? Let me tell you, if it weren't for my face, you would have been dead long ago. You really are a good-for-nothing. Old Nya, watch him for me. Before young Master Hao and the others leave, don't let him take half a step out of the city lord's mansion. Shen Feiyun scolded angrily and then instructed the black-clothed old man before leaving angrily with the wine jug. Yes, I'm a good-for-nothing. But have you ever taught me well? Have you ever cared about me? You only know how to drink all day and do nothing. I'm like this because of you. You'd better drink yourself to death as soon as possible. Young Master Long roared at Shan Feiyun's back. The black-clothed old man sighed and said, Young Master, the Lord also has his difficulties. You should speak less. Humph. Young Master Long snorted coldly, his eyes flashing with shocking murderous intent, and said sternly, So what if he's the son of the chief Tower Master? If he dares to provoke me, I will still make him pay the price. The black-clothed old man's face changed and hurriedly said, Young Master, this won't do. Please don't act recklessly. Why do you care? Scram. Young Master Long pushed the black-clothed old man away, opened the teleportation door, and walked in without looking back. Trading Pavilion. The woman in red brought Qin Feiyang and the other two into a VIP room. The VIP room was about 5 or 6 meters long, and the decorations were simple and elegant. In the middle, there was a tea table, surrounded by a few chairs neatly arranged. In front of him was a transparent floor-to-ceiling window, allowing him to clearly see the situation outside the auction house. Please take a seat. After the woman in red finished speaking, she walked to the tea table. There was a tea set on the tea table. She squatted on the ground and prepared to make tea. Wang Yuer laughed. You can go and do your work. We can do it ourselves. All right, I'll keep guard outside. If there's anything, just call me. The woman in red was very sensible. She got up and walked out of the VIP room, closing the door. The auction would begin in a while. Qin Feiyang glanced at the auction house, then laid on the chair and closed his eyes to take a nap. Suddenly, young Master Hao sighed. I really didn't expect Shen Feiyun to become like this. Yeah, this is too different from the Shen Feiyun we know. Wang Yu nodded. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes, looked at the two of them, and asked, What kind of person was Shen Feiyun in the past? Young Master Hao said, A person respected by the world, but also a pitiful person. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang became more and more curious. Back then, he was extremely talented, and together with Gongsun Bei, they were known as the two heroes of the main pagoda. His future was limitless. At that time, both of them wanted to become my father's disciple, but you also know that the main pagoda has rules. One must obtain the inheritance of a certain main pagoda master in the land of inheritance in order to become the current main pagoda master's disciple. Later, my father brought them to the land of inheritance, but the person who obtained the inheritance in the end was Gongsun Bei. Young Master Hao said. Qin Feiyang said in surprise. Just because of this blow, he left the divine city? Of course not. As a monstrous figure, how could his temperament be so bad? The biggest reason why he left the divine city was that his woman had an affair with Gongsun Bei. Young Master Hao said. What? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. Surprised, right? I was the same as you at that time. But in fact, this was a misunderstanding. Young Master Hao said. What misunderstanding? Qin Feiyang asked. At that time, Gongsun Bei and Shen Feiyun were rivals and friends in the main pagoda, and the two of them were indeed fated. They fell in love with the same woman at the same time, and the three of them had a very good relationship. In the end, the woman chose Shen Feiyun, and they were already at the point of marriage. But just a few days after Shen Feiyun returned from the land of inheritance, one evening, He found that woman and Gongsun Bei together in a secluded valley in the main pagoda's holy land, and they were whispering sweet nothings to each other. Shin Feiyun thought that the two of them were secretly having an affair behind his back. He also thought that the woman was vain. When she saw that Gongsun Bei had become the main pagoda master's disciple, she took the initiative to throw herself at him. So, in a rage, Shun Feiyun directly killed the woman and fought with Gongsun Bei. In the end, even my father was alarmed. Young Master Hao said. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "It's not Shin Feiyun's fault. If there was nothing, why would Gongsun Bei and that woman meet in private?" I thought so too at that time. But in the end, under my father's interrogation, Gongsun Bei told the truth. The reason was that Shun Feiyun didn't get the inheritance and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. After returning from the land of inheritance, he drank all day long to drown his sorrows. That woman was anxious, so she went to find Gongsun Bei and asked him to persuade Shin Feiyun. At that time, they were whispering sweet nothings to each other purely because that woman was pregnant with Shin Feiyun's child. Her body was a little weak, and she almost tripped. Gongsun Bei went up to support her and told her to be careful in the future. Unexpectedly, Shin Feiyun happened to see it, and the misunderstanding arose. Young Master Hao sighed. "I see." Qin Feiyang suddenly understood and asked, "Does Shin Feiyun know the truth?" "Yes." Young Master Hao nodded. Qin Feiyang said, "Then he must be very regretful. After all, that woman is already pregnant with his child." "Yes, very regretful." But because of this, he resented Gongsun Bei even more. Because in his opinion, if Gongsun Bei hadn't met that woman in private, this tragedy wouldn't have happened. At that time, he might have really been overwhelmed with grief and indignation. He even went to look for my father to reason with him. You know my father's personality. Seeing that he was being unreasonable, not only did he not help him, he even fiercely reprimanded him. Because of this, Shin Feiyun even hated my father, thinking that my father was biased toward Gongsun Bei. Then, in a fit of anger, he left the divine city. There has been no news of him all these years, but I didn't expect him to be in Qinghai City, and I didn't expect his son to be so old. Young Master Hao said. Because of a small misunderstanding, he mistakenly killed his own woman and unborn child. Such a blow, no matter who it was, would probably break down. No wonder he became like this. But not long ago, I noticed that the way he looked at you seemed to still hate your father. Qin Feiyang said. I noticed it too. I think he has fallen into it, and will find it very difficult to walk out. My father is the same. He knew that Shin Feiyun was blinded by grief and anger, but he didn't counsel him. Instead, he scolded him. Isn't this aggravating the conflict? Forget it. Let's not talk about it. This is their business. Let them solve it themselves. Young Master Hao waved his hand. Qin Feiyang sighed. Chapter 984. At the same time, in the lounge of the trading pavilion, a capable middle-aged man sat in front of the coffee table, slowly drinking tea. Opposite this person, there was a thin young man, who was also a staff member of the trading pavilion. He was saying something to the middle-aged man. Sir, that's what happened. A moment later, the thin young man finally finished speaking. There are still people in Qinghai City that Shun Feiyun is afraid of? The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with surprise as he asked, What do those three people look like? The thin young man waved his hand. His battle chi surged, and three phantoms condensed. It was Qin Feiyang and the other two. The middle-aged man looked at the phantoms of the three people and his gaze immediately became dull. The teacup in his hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. What's wrong, sir? The thin young man was shocked and asked. Impossible. Why would they appear in Qinghai City? The middle-aged man acted as if he didn't hear anything as he muttered to himself, his face full of disbelief. The thin young man was also more and more surprised. Suddenly, the middle-aged man looked at the thin young man and asked, Where are they now? VIP room 17 of the auction house. The thin young man said. The middle-aged man pondered for a moment, then waved his hand and said, I understand. You can leave first. Yes. The thin young man respectfully replied, then bowed and left, closing the door. The middle-aged man also lowered his head and pondered. Dong dong. Soon, there was a knock on the door. The middle-aged man took a deep breath, looked up at the door and said, "Please come in." The door opened, and a purple-clothed young man strode in. It was young Master Long, nephew. "Why are you here?" The middle-aged man looked at young Master Long in surprise. "Don't mention it." After young Master Long closed the door, he shook his head angrily and walked up to sit opposite the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's eyes flashed as he smiled and said, "Could it be that nephew is still brooding over what happened before?" Young Master Long was stunned and frowned. "Uncle Fu also knows?" The middle-aged man said, "It's such a big matter. It's hard for me not to know." Young Master Long said angrily, "That's good. Help me judge. Isn't my father very incompetent?" The middle-aged man hesitated, not knowing how to answer.
Yes.
"I admit that their identities are indeed frightening, but there's a good saying. The heavens are high and the emperor is far away. Why are you so afraid of them?" The more young Master Long spoke, the angrier he got. The middle-aged man was stunned and said, "You already know their identities?" "Yes, my father said so." Mr. Dragon nodded and asked, "Uncle Fu, do you know who they are?" "Of course I know." The middle-aged man smiled. Young Master Long said, "Then can you think of a way to help me vent my anger?" The middle-aged man was stunned. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "Nephew, aren't you making things difficult for Uncle? Even Uncle Fu is scared of you?" Young Master Dragon raised his eyebrows. "I can't be afraid. Nephew, listen to your uncle. Don't think about revenge anymore. We can't afford to offend the three of them." The middle-aged man sighed. "I can't afford to offend him." Young Master Long muttered as strands of fierce light suddenly burst out from his eyes, and he said, "I won't stop until I vent my anger. Why are you so stubborn? If you continue like this, Uncle will be angry," the middle-aged man said with a straight face. Young Master Long was incomparably angry, and he said, "At any rate, you are people of high status in Qinghai City. I really don't understand. Why are you afraid of them?" "Nephew, you have to understand a principle. Some people are born not to be offended." The middle-aged man sighed. "I really don't believe in this. Since Uncle Fu is not willing to help, then I'll take my leave." Young Master Long snorted coldly, stood up and walked towards the door angrily. Looking at young Master Long's back, the middle-aged man's eyes flickered, and he suddenly said, "Nephew, wait." "What?" Young Master Long stopped and asked without turning his head. "You really want to take revenge?" The middle-aged man said, "Yes." Young Master Long nodded without hesitation. The middle-aged man frowned and said, "Aren't you afraid of their revenge?" "No," young Master Long said. The middle-aged man was surprised and said, so confident, "Do you already know the grudge between your father and the chief tower master?" "What?" Young Master Long turned to look at the middle-aged man and said in surprise, "What grudge do they have? I didn't know at first. It's a long story, and this is also a scandal. I can't tell you." The middle-aged man shook his head. Young Master Long said impatiently, "Uncle Fu, can you be a man? Don't be so wishy-washy." "You brat, who are you talking to?" The middle-aged man glared at him and said, "I can tell you, but you can't tell anyone else." "Okay." Young Master Long nodded. "When your father was young, he was a peerless genius in Divine City, and his future could be said to be bright." The middle-aged man said, "What? Father stayed in Divine City?" Young Master Long was surprised. "No, your father was originally from Divine City." The middle-aged man said, Young Master Long was dumbfounded. "Very shocking, right? Not only that, when your father was young, he almost became the chief tower master's disciple." The middle-aged man laughed. Young Master Long frowned and said, "Then why did he come to this place where birds don't lay eggs?" "Because of deceit, suppression." Speaking of this, I have to mention another person. This person is called Gongsun Bei, and he is now the hall master of the Oracle Hall. He has a high position and power. When he was young, this person had a very good relationship with your father. However, this Gongsun Bei is a sanctimonious villain. I still remember that your father was about to become the Chief Tower Master's personal disciple, but this Gongsun Bei said something to the Chief Tower Master, and the Chief Tower Master immediately changed his mind, and he even took the opportunity to snatch your father's woman. The middle-aged man said faintly. Hearing this, young Master Long was stunned, and then said angrily, "He is too despicable. Isn't that so?" The most excessive thing is that the Chief Tower Master not only went back on his word, but he also sent your father to Qinghai City, and he also gave a death order, ordering your father to never return to Divine City. It is because of this that your father drinks all day long. To be honest, if the Chief Tower Master didn't send your father here, with your father's talent, his status in Divine City would not be worse than Gongsun Bei. The middle-aged man sighed. How preposterous. These people are worse than animals. Young Master Long gritted his teeth, his eyes full of resentment, and said gloomily, "Uncle Fu, I must seek justice for my father." Forget it. The Chief Tower Master controls the entire Forgotten Continent and the fate of all of us. You can't beat him. It's just that your father, I really feel that it's not worth it for him, the middle-aged man said regretfully. On the surface, it was persuasion, but in reality, it was instigation. I can't beat the Chief Tower Master, but that doesn't mean I can't beat his son. I've decided. I want him to taste the pain of losing a son. Young Master Long said sternly. You want to kill young Master Hao? The middle-aged man was shocked. Yes. Young Master Long nodded, then knelt on the ground with a plop and said, "Uncle Fu, on account of our years of friendship, please help me." The middle-aged man hesitated. Chapter 985. The middle-aged man lowered his head to look at young Master Long, as if it was very difficult for him to make a decision, and sighed. "Nephew, why are you doing this?" "Fine. Since you are so sensible and filial, Uncle will help you this time." "Thank you, Uncle Fu." Young Master Long was overjoyed. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Don't kneel, quickly get up." Young Master Long got up and returned to his seat, asking, "Uncle, do you have any brilliant ideas?" "Let me think about it first." The middle-aged man pondered. Time passed by just like that. Suddenly, the middle-aged man's eyes flashed as he stood up and said, "Wait a moment, I'll be right back." Without waiting for young Master Long's response, he hurriedly walked out of the lounge. In less than 100 breaths, he returned with an exquisite jade box in his hand. "With this thing, I guarantee that you will succeed." The middle-aged man sat on the chair and smiled, then pushed the jade box in front of young Master Long. Young Master Long grabbed the jade box and opened the lid. At first, a trace of suspicion crawled up in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a ray of light. At the same time, in the VIP room, Qin Feiyang and the other two were sipping tea while chatting, waiting for the auction to begin. Dong! Finally, with the sound of a bell, the auction began. In addition to the various VIP rooms, the outside was already packed with people. When the bell rang, the originally noisy auction house immediately quieted down. Shua. Immediately after, a woman in white appeared out of thin air on the high platform in the middle of the auction house. Looking around at the audience, the woman in white smiled and said, "I believe that most of you are no stranger to me, so I don't need to introduce myself and will directly start the auction." As soon as she finished, the woman in white waved her hand, and a palm-sized boat appeared out of thin air in front of her. The treasure light was hazy, and the aura was astonishing. This ship is called the Saint King ship. It is a sacred artifact that can isolate the wind and waves of the sea and stop the attacks of the saint beasts. It can be said that as long as you have it, everyone can basically move unimpeded in the outer sea. The woman in white introduced with a smile. Sacred artifact. In an instant, the entire auction house was in an uproar. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. He turned to look at Wang Yuer and said, "Even a sacred artifact, isn't this too much?" "Don't be surprised." Wang Yuer rolled her eyes at him. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. He was actually despised by this woman. Looking at Qin Feiyang's expression, young Master Hao shook his head with a smile and said, "Brother Mu, this time, sister really isn't targeting you." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Although saint artifacts are precious, the Divine City's exchange pavilion will auction off one or two every few years. Therefore, to people like us from the Divine City, auctioning sacred artifacts is no longer a rare thing, young Master House said with a smile. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded. But even so, it was still shocking enough. After all, this was a saint weapon that was comparable to a 9-star battle saint. Its value could not be measured by gold coins. As if he had seen through Qin Feiyang's thoughts, young Master House smiled faintly and said, sacred artifacts naturally cannot be measured by gold coins. Furthermore, the transaction pavilion does not expect to make money from these sacred artifacts. They do not care about this little bit of money either. It is purely a means of doing business. Qin Feiyang nodded. Indeed, with the wealth of the transaction pavilion, it did not matter even if they gave away a few sacred artifacts for free. Wang Yuer suddenly said, this sage king, we have to get it. With it, it will indeed be much more convenient for us to enter Qinghai. But the key is, who will pay for it? Young Master Hao looked at Wang Yuer and Qin Feiyang. Why are you looking at me? Wang Yuer raised her eyebrows. Young Master Hao shrugged and said, I have no money. Of course, I have to look at you. The son of the chief tower master had no money? If this was spread out, he would definitely be laughed at. But it was the truth. Because usually, except for pocket money, he basically did not carry any money with him. And his pocket money was obviously not enough to bid for this sage king. I don't have it either. Even if you do, I won't pay for it, Wang Yuer said indifferently. Why? Young Master Hao was very dissatisfied. They had come out to train together. What was there to share? Because of my ability. Without me, even if you get the Sage King, you can't revive it. A sacred artifact that can't be revived has no value at all. Wang Yuer said indifferently. Young Master Hao was stunned, and then he couldn't help but feel a headache. Then he looked at Qin Feiyang and said with a sneaky smile, brother, it seems that we have to rely on you. As an alchemist, Qin Feiyang could refine a peerless pill like the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill. He would not believe that he did not have money. But Wang Yuer did not know that the Juku Yellow Dragon Pill was refined by Qin Feiyang. Hearing young Master Hao's words, she immediately rolled her eyes and said, how can he afford a sacred artifact? What do I look like? Let me tell you, don't look down on people. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Wang Yuer said disdainfully, then prove it to me. Okay, but I have a condition. If I buy the Sage King in the end, not only do you have to listen to my every word during the journey, but you also have to be my maid for 2 years and follow me whenever I call. Qin Feiyang said, you're quite ambitious. You actually want me to be your maid? Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? Wang Yuer gnashed her teeth. You don't dare? It turns out that you're just a... Qin Feiyang sneered. Who says I don't dare? I'll bet with you. I want to see how capable you are. Wang Yuer snorted coldly, looked at the auction house, and said no more. Young Master Hao glanced at Wang Yuer and secretly gave Qin Feiyang a thumbs up. He chuckled and said, brother, good move. He did not doubt Qin Feiyang's ability at all. And as long as Qin Feiyang won, not only would they regain the right to speak, but they would also be able to subdue this demoness. Then, the journey would naturally be much more peaceful. It could be said that it was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and asked, I heard the woman mention the outer sea just now. Where is the outer sea? You don't even know that? You're too lame. Young Master Hao glanced at him speechlessly and explained, Qinghai is composed of 2 parts, the outer sea and the inner sea. Relatively speaking, the outer sea is safer, and the inner sea is basically filled with saint beasts. Qin Feiyang nodded. At this time, the woman in white standing on the high platform finally finished her introduction and then said, the starting price is 10 million, and each bid must be no less than 1 million. There is no upper limit. Let's start now. 11 million, 12 million, 13 million, 30 million, 50 million, 90 million, 100 million. The auction house immediately burst into shouts. In less than 100 breaths, the price broke through the 100 million mark. Everyone's face turned red. Chapter 986. Seeing this, Young Master Hao didn't say anything. But when Wang Yuer saw that Qin Feiyang didn't bid for a long time, she couldn't help but mock. What are you doing? Don't tell me that this price scared you. No hurry. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Of course I'm not in a hurry. Anyway, I'm not the one who wants to bid. I just want to tell someone that if you don't have the ability, don't try to be brave. Wang Yuer slowly cleaned the tea set while chuckling, full of sarcasm. Trying to be brave? Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and said, Am I the kind of person who likes to be brave? I'm just afraid that once I open my mouth, they won't be able to play anymore. Arrogant. Wang Yuer rolled her eyes. Qin Feiyang frowned. It seemed that he had to shut this woman up. Otherwise, she would keep nagging and annoying. 1 billion, he said without hesitation. Wang Yuer was stunned and looked quite surprised. Because the current bidding price of the Saint Kingship was only about 300 million. In other words, Qin Feiyang had added nearly 700 million. 700 million. For her, it was nothing. But for the people of Qinghai City, most of them could only look at the dust. At the same time, the people in the auction house and other VIP rooms also looked at the VIP room where Qin Feiyang was. Who is this, increasing the price by so much at once? Isn't this deliberately making trouble? Everyone murmured. There was shock. There was dissatisfaction. There were also many people who fell silent, because this number had exceeded their bottom line. 1 billion. Suddenly, an exceptionally loud voice sounded, coming from the VIP room next to Qin Feiyang's with insufferably arrogant tone. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows. Wang Yuer revealed a gloating smile and said, As the son of Qinghai City's city lord, in terms of wealth, I'm afraid no one here can compare with him. I think you should give up. That's right. The owner of this voice was young Master Long. Him? Are you kidding? Qin Feiyang's eyes were filled with disdain. If it was young Master Hao, he might still consider it. However, this young Master Long was simply a profligate from head to toe. Such a person, no matter how high their status or background, would not be able to enter his eyes. Hearing young Master Dragon's voice, the rest of the people also came to their senses and thought of Qin Feiyang. Looks like they're going to have another fight here. Yeah, we'd better be tactful and not fight with them. We can't win anyway. But speaking of which, where exactly did those 3 people come from? Why did they cause such a commotion the moment they arrived in Qinghai City? People were confused. No one raised the price again, because they understood that this was a shapeless battlefield, and the slightest carelessness would bring disaster upon themselves. On the high platform, that white-clothed woman also cast a meaningful glance at Qin Feiyang and young Master Long's VIP room. She smiled and asked, 1 billion. Is there anyone else who wants to raise the price? Wang Yuer teased, Hey, say something. Otherwise, others will think that you're scared by him. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, Don't use such a childish method to provoke me, okay? I'm happy to. Wang Yuer looked at him proudly. Sigh. Qin Feiyang let out a deep sigh. When this woman is unreasonable, it's really troublesome. He looked at the auction house and said indifferently, 2 billion. Oh my God. He actually increased the price by 900 million. How rich is he? Everyone was dumbfounded. The smile on Wang Yuer's face also froze. Could it be that this bastard was really rich? She couldn't help but suspect. 1 billion. Next door. Young Master Long's voice also sounded. It was very calm. It was as if this 2 billion was just a drop in the ocean in his eyes. Qin Feiyang took a sip of tea and said indifferently, 10 billion. His tone was even calmer than young Master Long's. But Wang Yuer was not calm. 10 billion gold coins, if it were her parents, might not be much. After all, the two of them were one of the highest authorities in the Forgotten Continent. But in front of her, it was an astronomical figure. Young Master Hao was also dumbfounded. This guy was too scary. He opened his mouth and said billions, tens of billions. How much wealth did he have to dare to bid so unscrupulously? Those people outside also couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Everyone's face was full of shock. Young Master Long, who was next door, suddenly stood up when Qin Feiyang said this price. His face was full of disbelief. 10 billion. This was too crazy. After a while, he came back to his senses and said gloomily, "Although you and I are both bidders and have no right to ask about your financial resources, now I have to wonder if you have so many gold coins?" "You don't need to worry about that," Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile. Young Master Long gritted his teeth and said, "That's the best 1 billion. Qin Feiyong laughed and said, "Aren't you the son of the city lord? Do you still care about this little money? 20 billion. The whole auction house suddenly fell into a dead silence. Wang Yuer said angrily, directly increasing the price by 10 billion. "Are you crazy?" According to the current situation, the Saint Kingship obviously couldn't afford so much. Qin Feiyong said, "This is my business. Don't interrupt." "Yes, this is his money. What does it have to do with me? Why should I feel bad?" Wang Yuer was stunned and coldly snorted, "Fine. I was kind enough to do bad things. Do as you like." At the same time, young Master Long stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in a daze. 10 billion was already beyond his ability, but he didn't expect that the other party would increase the price by 10 billion without saying anything. More importantly, when the other party increased the price, he didn't hesitate at all, as if 20 billion was not worth mentioning in his eyes. He was about to explode. Originally, he wanted to use this opportunity to suppress Qin Feiyong's prestige and regain some face, but it was the opposite. If this continued, the person who would be embarrassed in the end would be him. Once or twice, everyone would just laugh, and after a while, they would forget about it. But if there was a third or fourth time, then he would never be able to raise his head again in Shanghai City. Yes, I can't lose to him again. His eyes turned cold as he looked at the woman in white on the high platform and shouted, "He must be bidding randomly. Take him down immediately and interrogate him." The woman in white looked at young Master Long's VIP room, and then looked at Qin Feiyong's VIP room with a hesitant expression. Obviously, she also suspected that Qin Feiyong might be deliberately causing trouble. But in the end, she didn't ask anything and smiled at young Master Long's VIP room. "Although my Shanghai City's trading pavilion is not as good as other places' trading pavilions, I believe that no one would dare to cause trouble here." Young Master Long's face sank. "No matter what, I don't believe that he really has 20 billion gold coins. In terms of family background, I might not be able to compare to you. But in terms of wealth, it's not that I look down on you. But even if you go bankrupt, you might not even have a tenth of me," Qin Feiyong said with a faint smile, his contempt undisguised. Aren't these words a bit arrogant? Chapter 987. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Young Master Long was so angry that his eyes turned red and his body trembled. He didn't have much wealth, but he had the City Lord's mansion behind him. The City Lord's mansion controlled the entire Shanghai City. Although they weren't as rich as a country, at least in this place, other than the trading pavilion, no one dared to say that they were as rich as the City Lord's mansion. Even if the other party was the direct disciple of the Chief Tower Master, it was impossible for him to have such wealth. 21 billion. Young Master Long bid. This was no longer a personal problem, but a matter of the City Lord's mansion's reputation and face. 30 billion. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted, and he casually added another 10 billion. Bastard. Young Master Long couldn't hold it in anymore. He felt that it was too exaggerated and extravagant to raise the price by 100 million, but the other party actually raised the price by 10 billion repeatedly. This was a blatant humiliation to him. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "If you're not happy, you can also raise the price by 10 billion. Are you trying to provoke me? All right, I'll fulfill your wish. I'd like to see how capable you are." 40 billion. Young Master Long's gloomy voice sounded. "Amazing. But let's see how you're going to deal with this next move." "Not much, 100 billion. Qin Feiyong chuckled. "What?" Wang Yuer and young Master Hao suddenly stood up and stared at Qin Feiyong in shock. Their eyeballs were about to fall out. The people outside the auction house were also dumbfounded and couldn't come back to their senses for a long time. Even the white-clothed woman on the high platform was in disbelief. 100 billion wasn't much? Although sacred artifacts were priceless, the trading pavilion had never thought of making money when they were auctioned. They purely wanted to gain popularity. So the highest price in the history of the trading pavilion was only about 50 billion. But now, it was actually twice as much as before. What was the background of this young man to be so generous? She still didn't know Qin Feiyang's identity, so she was very puzzled. Young Master Long, on the other hand, went completely crazy. He directly increased the price to 100 billion, which was clearly to embarrass him. How is it? Is it okay? If you can't, then don't force yourself, Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile. Young Master Long didn't reply. To be honest, 100 billion had already far exceeded his expectations. If this continued, his father would not let him off easily. However, if he gave up just like that, who knew how many people would laugh at him behind his back in the future? 100 billion? Is there anyone else? Asked the woman in white. She looked at Mr. Long's VIP room with anticipation. She understood young Master Long's personality. Calling him a silk pants was too flattering. He was simply an arrogant idiot. Perhaps he would really fight this person to the end. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, I believe that not many people in Qinghai City can afford this price. Just announce the results. Crazy. But he does have the right to be arrogant. People murmured. On the one hand, they were a little unhappy when they heard Qin Feiyang's words, because Qin Feiyang was talking about Qinghai City. In other words, this included them as well. But on the other hand, they were powerless to refute, because the other party did have the qualifications to look down on them. Then there was young Master Long. He stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, his hands clenched tightly together, his eyes spewing thick flames of anger. He was feeling that his self-esteem was being ruthlessly trampled on. His face was about to distort. 101 billion. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth and roared. Obviously, he had reached his limit and didn't dare to continue. In other words, this was the last time he would raise the price. In fact, he was just gambling. If Qin Feiyang didn't raise the price, then he would win and regain some face. But if Qin Feiyang continued to raise the price, then he would lose completely. Continue? Young Master Hao frowned, looked at Qin Feiyang, and said in a low voice, Brother, although the Saint King ship is a sacred artifact, we don't have to have it. Why don't we just forget about it? If we just let it go like this, I'm afraid some people will laugh at me for the rest of my life, Qin Feiyang said, glancing at Wang Yu as he spoke. Wang Yu raised her eyebrows and said, Can you stop being so sarcastic? I'm just stating a fact, Qin Feiyang said indifferently. Enemies. You'd better get married quickly, lest you fight all day long, young Master Hao said helplessly. Get lost. Qin Feiyang and Wang Yu shouted at young Master Hao almost at the same time, their eyes full of hostility. Okay. I'm being nosy, you guys continue. Young Master Hao pursed his lips. He could tell that when the two of them were quarreling, bystanders must not interfere. Otherwise, they would definitely attract trouble. Not going to raise the price? Looks like I won. Seeing Qin Feiyang not speaking for a long time, young Master Long muttered to himself. He finally won back a loss. 110 billion. However, before he could let out a sigh of relief, Qin Feiyang's voice sounded again, echoing throughout the auction house for a long time. Bastard! Young Master Long immediately went crazy and smashed the floor-to-ceiling window in front of him with a punch. The people in the auction house couldn't help but look at him sympathetically. But the more it was like this, the more the anger in his heart burned, and the more hatred he had for Qin Feiyang, the more intense it became. However, he seemed to be a little afraid of the white-clothed woman on the high platform, so he didn't make a move here. You're good, we'll see. After saying those words, he turned around and strode out of the VIP room. Congratulations to little brother for winning the Saint King ship. Men, send it to little brother. The white-clothed woman immediately announced the result. Soon, the red-clothed woman who had received Qin Feiyang and the other two quickly walked up to the high platform, took the Saint King ship from the white-clothed woman, and returned the way she came. Next, let's auction the second item. This is a 10,000-year-old dragonflame grass. The starting price is 3,000 gold coins, and each increment must be no less than 100 gold coins. The white-clothed woman took out a crimson medicinal herb and introduced it briefly before continuing the auction. Dragon flame grass. Qin Feiyang glanced at the medicinal herb with a surprised expression. The dragon flame grass was considered a rare medicinal herb, and it was also needed to refine the 9 transformation dragon blood pill. Dong. Just as he was about to bid, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Qin Feiyang said. The door opened, and the red-clothed woman walked in with the Saint King's ship. Qin Feiyang glanced at the Saint King's ship casually, then pointed to Wang Yuer and said with a smile, "Just give it to her." Huh. The red-clothed woman was stunned. She had spent more than 100 billion, and she was giving it to someone else just like that? The world of the rich is so hard to understand. The red-clothed woman muttered to herself and respectfully handed the Saint King's ship to Wang Yuer. Wang Yuer was stunned. A saint artifact was definitely a supreme treasure for those below the combat emperor realm. She was just saying it, but she didn't expect Qin Feiyang to really give it to her. She glanced at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "Aren't you afraid that I'll take it for myself? It's just a saint artifact. It doesn't matter. Of course, if you really feel bad about it, you can go and persuade your parents and grandfather to cancel our engagement when you go back." Qin Feiyang smiled. Wang Yuer's expression froze, and she said angrily, "Bastard, am I so annoying?" She should have been happy to hear that, because she didn't want to marry Qin Feiyang. But now, she didn't know why, but she felt a little uncomfortable. Qin Feiyang said, "It's not that I'm annoying. It's just that our personalities don't match." Seeing Qin Feiyang's indifferent expression, the anger in Wang Yuer's heart rose. "Don't worry, I don't fancy a stinky man like you. Once we return to the deity's lake, I'll immediately persuade them." Divine City. The red-clothed woman's eyes trembled. These 3 people were actually from Divine City. No wonder even Shun Feiyun didn't dare to offend them. However, the relationship between these 2 seemed a little complicated. But as a smart person, she knew what to care and what not to care. She looked at Qin Feiyang and asked with a smile, "Young master, do you want to pay now or later?" "Now. Take me to a quiet place." Qin Feiyang stood up and said. Because his gold coins were basically with Fatso, and Fatso was far away in Divine City, so he had to avoid young master Hao and Wang Yuer and ask Fatso to send the money over. "All right, follow me." The red-clothed woman nodded and turned around to lead Qin Feiyang out of the VIP room. Then, they walked down the corridor. Not long later, the 2 of them stopped in front of a door. The red-clothed woman pushed open the door. Inside was a lounge with simple decorations. A coffee table, a desk, a bookshelf, and 4 chairs. "Young master, please." The red-clothed woman retreated to the side. Qin Feiyang walked in and looked around. Then, he turned to the red-clothed woman and said with a smile, "Wait for me outside." The red-clothed woman was stunned. What was this person doing? It was so mysterious. However, in the face of a guest request, especially now that she knew that Qin Feiyang was from Divine City, she didn't dare to refuse. "All right then, I'll go make a pot of tea for you." The red-clothed woman smiled. "All right." Qin Feiyang nodded. After the red-clothed woman turned and left, Qin Feiyang immediately closed the door and took out the image crystal. Soon, Fatso's shadow appeared. Qin Feiyang said, "Immediately send me 110 billion gold coins." "So much?" Fatso was stunned and couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him and urged, "I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Hurry up." Fatso said, "Then you have to tell me where you are now, right?" "I'm in Qinghai City." After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he gave the coordinates to Fatso. In less than 3 breaths, Fatso appeared in the lounge out of thin air and said, "What are you doing here? What else can I do?" "Of course I'm going to Qinghai City," Qin Feiyang said helplessly. Fatso frowned. "Then what did you do with the 110 billion? Qin Feiyang explained it in a few words. "Are you kidding me? A sacred artifact was given to Wang Yuer for nothing? Are you a prodigal?" Fatso immediately said angrily. But complaining was complaining. He still had to give the gold coins. After all, this wealth was earned by Qin Feiyang, and he was at most a butler. After sorting out the 110 billion gold coins, he put them in an empty Chinquin bag and threw them to Qin Feiyang. Then, he asked. Do you want me to go and help? Qinghai City was dangerous and unpredictable. He was a little worried that Qin Feiyang would go alone. Qin Feiyang thought for a moment, then shook his head. I don't need it now, but I might need it in the future. In short, wait for my news at any time. All right. Fatso nodded. Dong. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Young master, are you done? The red-clothed woman's voice also sounded. Qin Feiyang looked at Fatso and said, Let's go. Be careful, Fatty reminded in a low voice. Then, he opened the teleportation gate and walked in. When the portal dissipated, Qin Feiyang sat in front of the tea table, looked at the door and said, Come in. The red-clothed woman pushed the door and entered, carrying an exquisite tray with a teapot on it. The fragrance of tea assailed the nose. Qin Feiyang put the Chinquin bag that Fatso gave him on the tea table and said with a smile, The gold coins are all here. You can count them? The red-clothed woman looked at the Chinquin bag and put down the tray. She first poured tea for Qin Feiyang, then grabbed the Chinquin bag to check. Qin Feiyang also picked up the teacup and slowly tasted it. Time passed breath by breath. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang's body stiffened. He looked down at the teacup in his hand, his eyes full of surprise. The next second, his arm trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. At the same time, his whole body twitched crazily, his mouth foamed, and his face quickly turned black. Young master, what happened to you? Chapter 988. Not only did Qin Feiyang not answer, but he pushed the woman in red away, then took out a detoxification pill and threw it into his mouth. Obviously, there was poison in the tea. However, after taking the detoxification pill, he didn't get any better. The poison had even spread to his whole body and converged towards his heart. The corners of his mouth began to turn purple, and his consciousness was dissipating. What kind of poison is this, so terrible? Qin Feiyang was surprised. You know, he took a detoxification pill with 5 veins. Even if it was highly toxic, it could also have a mitigating effect. Young master, what's wrong with you? The woman in red was very anxious. Give me the teapot. Qin Feiyang shouted weakly. The woman in red looked at the teapot and then at Qin Feiyang, and a terrible idea suddenly appeared in her mind. She didn't dare to hesitate any longer, and immediately did as she was told, grabbed the teapot and brought it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang also grabbed the teapot and poured it into his mouth. The woman in red was so scared that her face turned pale. She had already thought that there was poison in the tea. Usually, in such a situation, one would find a way to detoxify the poison as soon as possible, but this person actually continued to swallow the poisonous tea. Wasn't this looking for death? But she didn't know that Qin Feiyang was doing this to find a way to detoxify the poison. Because Qin Feiyang didn't know what kind of poison was in the tea. So he had to figure this out before he could think of something to detoxify the poison. While drinking the poisonous tea, he tried to maintain the last bit of consciousness and tasted the tea carefully. Damn it! But in the end, a trace of despair crept up his face. In this tea, other than the taste of tea, he did not taste any other smell. In other words, this kind of poison was colorless and odorless. Unless he found the person who poisoned him, it was impossible to know what kind of poison it was. Say it. What poison did you put in? All of a sudden, he grabbed the woman in red's neck and roared with red eyes. I didn't. The woman in red shook her head, panicking to the extreme. You're the one who brought the tea. Who else could it be? Qin Feiyang tightened his grip, and the woman in red was about to suffocate. He had a good impression of the woman in red, but he never thought that she would try to harm him behind his back. I really didn't. Please believe me. The woman in red shook her head vigorously. Her eyes were filled with tears as she felt wronged. It's really not her? Then who is it? Qin Feiyang frowned. However, the poison had attacked his heart and was crazily eroding his mind, making it impossible for him to seriously consider this problem. It's me. But at this moment, a cold laugh rang out. Young Master Long pushed the door open and entered. He had a cruel smile on his face as he said, How is it? The bloodthirsty scorpion's venom isn't bad, right? Bloodthirsty scorpion. Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled. Xiao Chun was not unfamiliar with this venom. Back at the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion, Guofeng had wanted to use this venom to harm him. The detoxification pill had not been able to remove it. Once consumed, one would lose their life. This person was truly vicious. However, he also had to thank young Master Long. Because if young Master Long had not said it, he would never have thought that this was the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion. Although the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion was terrifying, it was not fatal to him, because he just so happened to have the antidote. This antidote was the venom of the blood soul spider. Last time when he dealt with Guofeng, he still had a lot left. Now, he was putting it in his Chinkuan bag. In the blink of an eye, after knowing that it was the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion, he immediately searched for it in his Chinkuan bag. Young Master Long looked at him curiously, not worried at all, because he didn't believe that Qin Feiyang would have the antidote. 3 breaths passed. Qin Feiyang's last remaining trace of consciousness was about to dissipate. He had even sensed the aura of death. Finally, he found the jade bottle that contained the blood soul spider's poison, pulled out the cork without hesitation, and poured it into his mouth. Ah! The 2 poisons collided crazily in his body. Intense pain engulfed his entire body, making him wish he was dead. What's going on? The screams alarmed the people outside the auction house. People were bewildered. What's going on? Brother, why did you suddenly scream? Young Master Hao and Wang Yu also heard it. They looked at each other, immediately got up, and rushed to the lounge where Qin Feiyang was at lightning speed. At the same time, in the lounge, young Master Long looked at Qin Feiyang's painful appearance at the moment, and then looked at the jade bottle in Qin Feiyang's hand. A trace of surprise crawled up in his eyes. Could it really be the venom of the blood soul spider? Impossible. He didn't know that I would poison him, let alone that I used the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion. How could he have prepared the antidote in advance? I must be thinking too much. But in order to avoid any more trouble, it's better to kill him quickly, young Master Long muttered, killing intent flashing in his eyes, and then he slapped towards Qin Feiyang's head. The poison had not been removed, so how could Qin Feiyang fight back now? He didn't even have the slightest strength to resist. Seeing that young Master Long's palm was about to land, the woman in red suddenly stood in front of him, quickly raised her hand, and slapped it. No! Qin Feiyang shouted. The woman in red was only a battle monarch, and young Master Long was a battle emperor. How could she be a match for young Master Long? She was simply courting death by doing so. And now, although he didn't have the strength to resist, it was still easy to deal with young Master Long. But it was too late. Boom! The 2 of them slapped together, and a terrifying wave of destructive air instantly spread out. The chair, tea table, study table, bookshelf, and the books on the side were all shattered in an instant. Puff! The woman in red spat out a mouthful of blood, and her arm was shattered on the spot. Her entire body was instantly sent flying, crashing into the wall behind her. With a loud bang, a large hole was made in the wall. Young Master, this really has nothing to do with me. The woman in red fell on the corridor, looked up at Qin Feiyang, and said with difficulty, and then fell to the ground. Blood kept flowing out of the corner of her mouth, and it was unknown whether she was dead or alive. What's the point of this? Qin Feiyang sighed inwardly. As soon as young Master Long appeared, he already knew that the poisoning had nothing to do with this woman in red. Meddlesome bitch, I'll deal with you later. Young Master Long was furious. He glared at the woman in red and continued to attack Qin Feiyang. At this time, young Master Hao and Wang Yu had already rushed over, but they were still a short distance away from the lounge. Seeing Qin Feiyang's appearance, the 2 people's complexion changed greatly. They shouted in unison, "Stop!" At the same time, they released their holy aura and pounced towards young Master Long. But young Master Long turned a deaf ear to them, and the killing intent in his eyes was even stronger than before. You want to kill me? Do you have the ability? Qin Feiyang's eyes were also emitting a bone-piercing killing intent. This person had harmed him time and time again, and had already touched his bottom line. With a thought, The spirit snake emperor appeared. Qin Feiyang shouted, "Cripple him." The spirit snake emperor immediately looked at young Master Long. Its long and narrow snake eyes were emitting a terrifying cold light. When the spirit snake emperor appeared, young Master Long also felt a strong sense of danger. Without hesitation, he turned around and began to flee. But it was too late. After all, he only had the cultivation of a war emperor. Whoosh! The spirit snake emperor suddenly pierced through the air, like a sharp arrow, and instantly pierced through young Master Long's lower abdomen. Blood immediately spurted out. Young Master Long fell to the ground, clutching his lower abdomen and howling in pain. His face was distorted from the pain. "Brother, are you all right?" Young Master Hao finally ran over and squatted beside Qin Feiyang, asking with concern, "It's just the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion. I'm fine." Qin Feiyang waved his hand and stood up with the help of young Master Hao. "What?" But when he heard the venom of the bloodthirsty scorpion, young Master Hao trembled and his face turned pale. Last time at the Dragon Phoenix house, he had personally experienced it. That feeling could only be described as worse than death. As for Wang Yuer, her soul almost left her body. She glanced at the lady in red and young Master Hao and said in a deep voice, "Who poisoned him?" Qin Feiyang looked at young Master Long and sneered. "Who else could it be? You're courting death." Wang Yuer's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She stepped forward and stomped on young Master Long's head. "Don't!" Qin Feiyang hurriedly shouted. But it was too late. Wang Yuer's foot landed, and with a crack, young Master Long's head exploded like a watermelon. Blood and flesh splattered everywhere, and he died on the spot. Seeing this scene, Qin Feiyang and young Master Hao swallowed their saliva. "This woman is too cruel. She is indeed not to be trifled with." Wang Yuer snorted and said, "This kind of scum should have been killed at the city gate." Young Master Hao frowned and said, "You're right. But what if Shun Feiyun causes trouble?" "So be it. Do you think we're afraid of him? Besides, it was his son who was courting death. He can only blame himself for not teaching his son well." Wang Yuer said domineeringly. Young Master Hao looked at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said, "It doesn't matter if you kill him. Anyway, the red-clothed woman will testify for me. Go and see how she is doing." Young Master Hao nodded and walked to the red-clothed woman's side. He reached out and touched her pulse. He turned to Qin Feiyang and said in a deep voice, "Not good." Qin Feiyang's eyes darkened and asked, "Is she dead?" "Not dead, but her heart is shattered. She's not far from death." Young Master Hao said, "Damned beast." Qin Feiyang was furious. He hurriedly took out a heart-protecting pill and a healing pill, both of which had 5 pill patterns, and said, "Quickly feed her." If this woman really died, he would feel guilty. First, he misunderstood this woman. Second, this woman was in danger because she wanted to save her. Young Master Hao grabbed the pill and stuffed it into the red-clothed woman's mouth. "What's going on?" At this moment, a middle-aged man ran over anxiously. It was the person who instigated young Master Long before. He ran into the lounge and saw the scene in front of him. His expression suddenly changed. Young Master Hao raised his eyebrows and asked, "Who are you?" "I am the pavilion master of the Qinghai City Trading Pavilion." The middle-aged man replied and then said, "What happened before? Why did young Master Long die here?" Young Master Hao suddenly said, "So you are Fu Shidong?" The middle-aged man was stunned. He sized up Qin Feiyang and the other two. His body suddenly trembled as he said in shock, "You are?" Young Master Hao said in a deep voice, "It doesn't matter who we are. What's important is, how do you plan to deal with this matter?" "What is it?" Fu Xiong looked confused. Young Master Hao said, "This young Master Long poisoned my brother's tea, and it was the venom of the blood-killing scorpion." "What?" Fu Xiong's face turned pale. Young Master Hao said, "Don't say that this has nothing to do with your trading pavilion." "What do you mean?" Fu Xiong was confused. Qin Feiyang and Wang Yuer also looked at young Master Hao suspiciously. Wasn't young Master Long the one who poisoned the tea? How could it have anything to do with the trading pavilion? Young Master Hao looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, "Was this pot of tea personally brewed by the staff of the trading pavilion and delivered here?" I don't know if she brewed it personally, but I can be sure that she delivered it personally. But she should have brewed it personally, Qin Feiyang said. Isn't that right? She brewed it personally and delivered it personally. How could young Master Long have the chance to poison it? So, I guess that either this woman was bribed by young Master Long, or someone else colluded with young Master Long and did something to the tea. Young Master House said. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and nodded. That seems to make sense. Fu Xiong panicked and hurriedly waved his hand. No, no, no. The staff of the trading pavilion would never do such a thing. There must be other reasons. Young Master Hao glanced at the woman in red and said, well, let's wait for her to wake up. Okay. Fu Xiong nodded, then turned to look at the guards not far away and said, go and inform Shin Feiyun to come and lie down. Yes. A guard responded respectfully and hurriedly turned around and ran away. Fu Xiong secretly wiped the cold sweat, then looked at Qin Feiyang and the other two and said with a flattering smile, young master, young miss, why don't we go to the room next door and sit for a while? Young Master Hao said, no need, just get someone to bring us a few chairs. Okay. Fu Xiong hurriedly responded, then looked at the staff and said angrily, what are you waiting for? Go quickly. In addition, tell the people in the auction house that today's auction is over. Don't gather here, and do what you need to do. At that moment, you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.